Chapter 2172. Chase after him. The experts of various factions clenched their teeth. They did not slow down at all. Even though they knew they would have a hard time suppressing Qin Nan, they were not willing to let Qin Nan leave just like that. That kid! Supreme Changshao let out a relieved sigh. However, he did not completely let his guard down. He unleashed a shocking murderous aura and followed the experts into the teleportation formation. Qin Nan and his crew smashed half of the walls of the ancient city into pieces and flew into the sky. They already knew that apart from Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan, the others would return to the westernmost land. Even though Xiang Hun and Supreme South World had told the other factions where they were not worried at all. The other factions would not dare to enter the teleportation formation no matter how bold they were. We can't catch up to them. Some of the peak authorities were disappointed. As a matter of fact, it was not that they could not catch up to Qin Nan's speed, but many of the peak experts on the Supreme Leaderboard were in other places. If the peak authorities kept chasing after them, the Nine Heavens Supremes in the Greater Success stage and the early stage of the Nine Heavens Supremes would slowly widen the gap between them. Even if they managed to catch up to them in the end, it would be meaningless. Qin Nan had 109 Heavens Supremes on his side. Qin Nan! A loud roar suddenly took place as a figure unleashed a tremendous sword intent. His speed greatly surpassed the peak 9 Heavens Supremes. He quickly left the experts of various factions in the dust and approached Qin Nan and his crew. Wang Tianfang is making his move. Such a terrifying speed, is that the legendary 7 continents plundering steps? Many 9 Heavens Supremes were astounded. They were confused too. What was the point of Wang Tianfang charging at the enemy on his own? Even though he was ranked 4th on the Supreme Leaderboard, there was no way he could take on 109 Heavens Supremes at once. Do you dare to take my sword? Wang Tianfang spoke again. Even though it was a question, he did not wait for Qin Nan's reply. 6 pairs of enormous glowing wings spread out from his back, stirring up a strong gust of wind. The sky above immediately fell into darkness as wisps of sword intents descended from the sky like roaming dragons. Whoosh! A sharp sword light slashed forward, penetrating heaven and earth. Is Wang Tianfang challenging Qin Nan? Many of the 9 Heavens Supremes gasped. This Wang Tianfang was too domineering. He was so audacious that he was out of control. If Qin Nan did not agree and led the 100 martial artists to attack, Wang Tianfang would be severely injured or even killed on the spot. In the nick of time, Qin Nan suddenly turned around. The Dao intents of the 12 arts of Dao seeking soared into the sky like 12 rays of light, triggering rare phenomena. A saber light seemed to have transcended time and space, coming from the endless past. Bang! Following a huge blast, the rift within a few 10,000 li was shattered into pieces. The formidable sword intents, and sword intents were devoured by the saber light. Bang! Wang Tianfang was the closest to the saber light. Even with his outstanding speed, he had no chance of dodging it. He took a great blow and was knocked back. He retreated dozens of steps and roared. Flapping his 6 wings, he finally stabilized his body. However, he also let out a muffled groan. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth, and his face was a little pale. Wang Tianfang lost? The 9 Heavens Supremes were dumbfounded. They knew Qin Nan was strong, yet they did not expect Qin Nan to be this strong. He had defeated Wang Tianfang with a single slash, as expected of the reincarnation of a Supreme Highness. His strength is indeed terrifying. I'm afraid only Li Yongfan can stop him in the Dao-seeking land. Many 9 Heavens Supremes exclaimed. Qin Nan did not have the indestructible flesh of eternity, nor did he use the undying cycle mountain and the ownerless heaven pattern. If Qin Nan continued to grow and achieve the Master Realm or even the Ruler Realm, how terrifying would he be when he was able to use the 2 artifacts? Who in the immortal realm could possibly stand a chance against him? Their eyes widened all of a sudden. They saw 3 corpses covered in blood flying toward them rapidly. Their hearts shivered when they saw the familiar faces. A cold voice soon echoed in their ears. "This is only the first thing I'm going to settle." Qin Nan and the 9 Heavens Supremes soon disappeared from the sight of the authorities. Everything that had happened had turned into wisps of divine sense spreading in all directions. The whole Tao-seeking land was startled. Some exclaimed, some were furious, some were laughing coldly, and some fell into deep thought. The peak experts of various factions soon gathered together to discuss how they were going to deal with Qin Nan. They immediately sent their experts to guard the ancient city, just in case Qin Nan tried to kill them again. 109 Heavens Supremes were enough to eliminate any formidable faction. At the same time, in a canyon in an ancient forbidden land, the entire canyon was dyed in the color of blood. An evil aura swept the place at a shocking pace, causing the trees, flowers, etc. to go crazy wherever it passed. Zhuang Nan and the 9 Heavens Supremes completely ignored it. They kept performing hand seals to insert wisps of mystical light into the copper cauldron in front of them. Not far away, a middle-aged man and a young man were watching the scene calmly. The former was the 6th immortal, Xiang Hun. He had used a special method to come here. He had paid a great price too. His cultivation was only in the early stage of the 9 Heavens Supreme Realm for now. Bang! All of a sudden, the cauldron exploded. The fragments scattered in all directions. 7 dark red pills covered in veined patterns hovered in the air, radiating with a shocking pulse of blood intent. Patriarch Xiang, it's done. Zhuang Nan let out a relieved sigh. He grabbed one of the pills and inspected it carefully. Patriarch Xiang, I'll tell you the method later. You just need to nurture the 7 fleshes and capture the flesh of reincarnation and the flesh of good luck. You can temporarily achieve the coexistence of 10 fleshes that even Zhou Di failed to achieve. Zhuang Nan said with a smile. Xiang Hun nodded without saying a word. Zhuang Nan was not angry. He asked, Patriarch Xiang, what should we do now? This time, he really caused a huge ruckus on the heaven-reaching Dao tree. Xiang Hun suddenly clenched his fists and said with a hollow laugh, he claims he's getting his revenge, but he's actually looking for something on the celestial tree. He has a lot of people with him, and he is heading to the westernmost land. I believe he's worried that we'll collude with other factions to deal with him. Chapter 2173. Meanwhile, in the rift. Not long after, Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan left the group and flew to the other side. They were heading to a forbidden area close to the celestial tree to cultivate in seclusion. The white-blue flower in their divine sense would emit a force to influence the celestial tree. Senior Zhou, Xiang Hun and the successor of the 10th Immortal have been tracking my location. Is there any way to stop them? Qin Nan transmitted his voice to the seal of the White Mountain that was pushed to the side by the 9 Dragons seal. 2 ways. Xiang Hun and the 10th Immortal are a lot weaker than Xiang Zun. If you can achieve the Master Realm, you will be able to withdraw the aura of the Divine Battle Spirit. They won't be able to detect your presence. Second, return to the Undying Cycle Mountain. Qin Nan's lips twisted upon hearing this. He was unable to do either of the 2 methods at the moment. Qin Nan expressed his gratitude and stopped thinking about it. He decided to leave it at that for now. Who are these 9 Heavens Supremes? Why are they willing to help you? Zhou Xuandao asked. Qin Nan told him everything that had happened. Zhou Xuandao fell silent for a moment before he said, the Army of Eternity was unstoppable not only because of the resources, blessed lands, martial arts, but also because Zhou Di had invented a lot of formations. The life-transforming dragon you saw was one of them. There's no point in teaching you formations that are too powerful now. However, there are 6 formations that the Army of Eternity learned in the early days. They're just right for you. If you cultivate them, your battle prowess will definitely increase significantly. Qin Nan was overjoyed. He said, "Thank you, Senior." He had returned to the westernmost land, not only to stop Xiang Hun and the other factions from teaming up with him. He also wanted to find the fortunate encounters in the westernmost land so he could spar with the others to improve their strength. However, he no longer had to do that with the formations of the Army of Eternity. Zhou Xuandao said indifferently, "No need to thank me. These things are yours to begin with. There's one more thing I have to tell you. It's impossible for you to build a second Army of Eternity under the current circumstances, so I won't teach you the synchronization of the minds." His voice came to an abrupt stop. Qin Nan had no idea that Zhou Xuandao had sensed a tremendous pressure from him. He had felt this kind of pressure once before. It was the Nine Dragons' stone seal's way of expressing its dissatisfaction. The corner of Zhou Xuandao's mouth twitched. Even though he was unwilling, he still changed the topic. "Fine, I'll teach you everything." The pressure on his body immediately disappeared without a trace. The corner of Qin Nan's mouth twitched. Senior Zhou Xuandao looked strict and old-fashioned. Why would he suddenly change his mind in the end? Zhou Xuandao didn't give Qin Nan much time to think. An enormous amount of memories rushed into Qin Nan's sea of consciousness. 2 days later, Qin Nan and the others returned to the palace in the westernmost land. Qin Nan fully comprehended the 7 formations in the meantime. His heart was filled with astonishment. Needless to say, the battle formation of the 6 gates was immensely powerful and mysterious. The synchronization of the minds was even more unbelievable. He now understood why Zhou Xuandao had hesitated at that time. Once many cultivators cultivated this formation at the same time, there would be a very mysterious connection between their spiritual wills. It was like 2 ropes tied together, and the deeper they cultivated, the stronger this connection would be. This was the so-called spirit qi. The so-called synchronization of the minds meant that the cultivators knew each other's will. That being said, it would only happen when the cultivators were advancing and retreating together. The cultivators could choose to sever the connection at any time. Besides, knowing each other's will wasn't the same as knowing each other's thoughts. It was a lot blurrier than the latter. It could be said that such a formation was completely made for the army. If anyone obtained it, they would definitely have the idea of building an army. In the 9 Heavens immortal realm, many factions existed in the form of clans, and factions instead of armies. It was not because the latter was too weak, but it was impossible to achieve the synchronization of the minds if they only relied on the immortal demon O's. As a result, they would not be able to utilize the strength of an army. It would only be a waste of resources if they tried to build an army. Fellow cultivators, I'm very grateful for your help. Qin Nan brought his fists together at the crowd and said, "To be honest, the celestial tree is going to blossom and bear fruits in advance. We won't have an easy time facing the alliance of the formidable factions. Therefore, I have 7 formations that the Army of Eternity practiced. I'll teach them to you. Until then, let's practice them together to improve our strength." The 9 Heavens Supremes were dumbfounded. Those were the formations that the Army of Eternity practiced. Qin Nan added after a slight pause, however, only 6 of them are battle formations. The 7th formation is a little different. Qin Nan did not hide the truth. He explained the secrets of the synchronization of the minds to the crowd and said sternly, "It's up to you whether you want to learn the formation or not. I won't force you. If you learn it, I, Qin Nan, will remember it and never forget it. If he was forced to learn this array formation, then it would be meaningless." Hesitation appeared on the faces of many people. How could I possibly miss out on such a marvelous formation? Elder Long expressed his opinion without hesitation. "I want to learn it too." The 9 Heavens Supremes expressed their opinions. In the end, only around 39 Heavens Supremes did not accept the offer. Qin Nan was quite surprised. He did not expect Su Rukin, the saint, would agree to it too. Fellow cultivators, you should cultivate on your own for the time being. We will learn the battle formations after we master the formation. Qin Nan did not mind the presence of the cultivators. He gave them a brief reminder and taught them the secrets of the synchronization of the mind. Around 109 Heavens Supremes sat with their legs crossed and began to comprehend the formation. Their martial talent was not as outstanding as Qin Nan's. Elder Long, Su Rukin, and a few Peak 9 Heavens Supremes only managed to comprehend the formation after 3 days. Come, Cultivator Qin Nan, Cultivator Su, let's try it out. Elder Long urged as he could not wait any longer. Qin Nan, Su Ruochen, and the others were quite curious too. They nodded and performed a seal. Their figures began to emit a faint glow. After some time, a buzzing sound was heard. They could feel that some kind of barrier between them had been broken apart, as if an ancient bridge had descended from the sky and connected them. They could vaguely sense the other parties will too. Holy crap, Cultivator Su, why do you have such a strong opinion of me? Elder Long cursed when he noticed something. Su Rukin twisted his lips. Don't you know why you have such a strong opinion of me? It's fine if you want to show off on the celestial tree, but why do you have to drag me into it too? Do you know how many enemies you are going to make with your voice? Cultivator Su, why do you have such a strong opinion of me? Elder Long was dumbfounded. Chapter 2174. While Qin Nan and the others were cultivating the formation, somewhere else in the ancient Forbidden Land, all of a sudden, a blinding glow was fired into the sky as various rare phenomena took place. The ground, mountains, forests, etc. within 10,000 li were struck by a great impact, causing them to tremble vigorously. Zhuang Nan, who was sitting with his legs crossed in the sky, suddenly opened his eyes. 2 peerless rays of light burst out from his back, illuminating the surroundings. In addition to that, his aura rose rapidly as if it had broken through an ancient seal. In the blink of an eye, it had reached an incomparably magnificent level. His aura became extremely vast and intimidated the ancient times. Ha ha! This is the real coexistence of the 9 fleshes. Zhuang Nan couldn't help but let out a thunderous laugh. He felt carefree and high-spirited. A few days ago, Xiang Hun had used some outstanding moves to capture Lu Gufeng and Meng Jiugong. He had finally achieved the same result after consuming the ancient pills refined by Supreme South World and the others. This time, the coexistence of the 9 fleshes was completely different from the previous time. Not only was he able to control the power of the 9 fleshes smoothly without affecting one another, he was also able to merge their powers together, achieving an unbelievable level. That being said, he could only maintain the coexistence for 3 years at most. He would only be able to maintain it for the rest of his life after obtaining Qin Nan's blood essence. Such a terrifying power! The 9 Heaven Supremes of the Heaven-Slaying sect and the Heaven-Repelling Ancient sect were startled. A few 9 Heaven Supremes in the Greater Success stage even wore pale faces. Very well. Even Xiang Hun's eyes flickered. He had already come up with a plan with Zhuang Nan before Zhuang Nan and the others entered the Tao-seeking land. They were going to use Supreme South World to let Zhuang Nan control the coexistence of the 9 fleshes so it would be easier for them to deal with Qin Nan. Xiang Hun was more familiar with Qin Nan's strength than anyone in the 9 Heavens immortal realm. He did not dare to lower his guard. Even though his original self was here, he was only a hair's breadth away from attaining the indestructible body of eternity. His combat prowess was incomparably terrifying, and he had the support of the various major forces. Qin Nan had no hope at all. He would lose without a doubt. However, he still wanted Zhuang Nan to attain the 9th body and increase his combat prowess. Since he wanted to deal with Qin Nan, he had to do his best. In addition, the power of the 9 bodies made him secretly excited. Once the plan was completed and he obtained this strand of eternal indestructible power, he might be able to surpass Zhou Di. Zhuang Nan, let's go. It's time to go, Xiang Hun said after calming his thoughts. He disappeared into the rift. Zhuang Nan and the others immediately followed him. One day later, on the celestial tree. Have you heard? The sixth immortal is here today to have a meeting with the various factions. Gasp, of course I heard about it, but I still don't understand. Didn't the sixth immortal achieve the Master Realm? How did he come here? I didn't expect Xiang Hun to be so ruthless. He actually came to deal with Qin Nan in person. The rogue cultivators in the ancient cities and the palaces were chatting with one another. Some of them exclaimed at times. Not long after, they noticed that the reputable cultivators of various factions had shown up and were heading toward the 19th branch. The meeting was taking place at the Wang clan, one of the 7 Heaven Highness clans. All kinds of immortal intents were pouring down from the rift in Blue Moon City that the Wang clan had constructed. Several 9 Heavens Supremes entered the main hall. Supreme Chang Shao exchanged glances with the patriarchs of the Sanqing Ancient Sect and the Heaven Illusionary Ancestors Sect before greeting the 9 Heavens Supremes of the other factions. Not long after, the people who were in charge of the Tao-seeking land arrived and gathered in the main hall. The atmosphere was lively. Why isn't he here yet? Gradually, some of the sect masters and saints began to frown. This was already half an hour later than the time they had agreed upon. Fellow cultivators, I'm sorry I'm a little late. A calm voice could be heard. The crowd immediately turned around and saw Xiang Hun walking toward them with a smile on his face. Behind him were Zhuang Nan and a young man. The early stage of the 9 Heavens Supreme Realm? Everyone immediately noticed the change in Xiang Hun's cultivation. Fellow Taoists, since we're here today, I'll cut to the chase. Xiang Hun suddenly came to a stop in the middle of the hall. He did not greet the patriarchs and saints. He said, I'll find a way to lure Qin Nan out. The ownerless heaven pattern, the undying cycle mountain, and his blood essence will all belong to the heaven-slaying sect. As for his mark, you can split the divine battle spirit among yourselves. If anyone dares to lay their hands on them, I won't hesitate to fall out with you. The moment these words were spoken, the pupils of many people shrank slightly. Patriarch Xiang, aren't you being a little too unreasonable? Let's not talk about how you're going to lure Qin Nan out. How dare your heaven-slaying sect take the 2 artifacts? You? A saint of an ancient tribe said with a displeased look. However, Xiang Hun did not wait for him to finish. He slapped the saint of an ancient tribe without mercy. Bang! A powerful force burst out from his body, causing the entire main hall to tremble violently. The saint of an ancient tribe was startled. He quickly executed an art of Tao seeking to defend himself, yet he was devoured by the force in the next moment. He let out a cry of agony as he slammed into the wall. The 9 Heavens Supremes were astounded. The saint was a peak 9 Heavens Supreme. Even though he was not ranked on the Supreme Leaderboard, his strength was not to be underestimated, yet Xiang Hun had seriously injured him with a single slap? Patriarch Xiang, can you tell us how you're going to lure Qin Nan out? Zheng Ho, the saint of the Zheng clan who was ranked 2nd on the Supreme Leaderboard, asked after calming down. Song will show up in 2 years. Qin Nan and I will have to eliminate his reincarnation to prevent him from becoming a great threat. Therefore, I'm going to use something to make the celestial tree blossom and bear fruits in advance. Do you think he won't show up? Xiang Hun said calmly, yet the 9 Heavens Supremes felt like a great clap of thunder. Xiang Hun could make the celestial tree blossom and bear fruits in advance. Chapter 2175. Following it, Zhuang Nan discussed with the other factions and revealed another piece of shocking news. The celestial tree would blossom and bear fruits in around 1.5 years. It was 3.5 years earlier than it was supposed to be. The news soon spread across the Tao-seeking land like a storm. The various factions and rogue cultivators quickly discussed in private and changed their plans after the initial shock. As for the far west land, it was peaceful. During this period of time, the remaining cultivators had already mastered the consensus of the mind. Even though there was nothing special after learning the formation, Qin Nan could sense a lot of things were changing. The changes would only grow bigger as time went by. Following this, Qin Nan taught the 6 battle formations to the crowd, and explained his understanding of the 6 battle formations to them. The 9 Heavens Supremes had different levels of martial skill talent. Some were outstanding, while others were average. It would take some time for them to fully comprehend the martial skill formations. As such, Qin Nan began to perform hand seals to execute the first formation, the 6 Suns Ancient Formation. In Qin Nan's opinion, it was a bit of a stretch to call it a battle formation, as its main purpose was not to kill the enemy, but to allow the cultivators to cooperate with one another to form a formation of the 6 suns. If this formation was cultivated to a higher level, it would be able to reach the stage where the small forces would be connected to each other, and the small forces would merge into the big forces. A badge in Qin Nan's storage bag suddenly emitted a glow. Supreme Chang Xiao had sent him a message. A cold grin appeared on Qin Nan's face as he took a glimpse. Xiang Hun, you've got it all planned out. Unfortunately, you have no idea that there's something similar to the flower of eternity in this world. Qin Nan took a deep breath. With Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan's influence, the celestial tree would blossom and bear fruits sooner than expected. It would most likely blossom in less than a year. That way, the various factions and Xiang Hun would be caught off guard. However, the situation was still quite dangerous. He had to do everything he could to improve his cultivation before the celestial tree blossomed and bore fruit. It will only take me half a year to fully comprehend the 6 formations and execute them. I should still have some time left by then. I might as well visit the deeper part of the westernmost land. Perhaps, Qin Nan murmured. The deeper part of the westernmost land must have more shocking fortunate encounters and fortunate encounters. However, at that instant Qin Nan's eyes flickered. The reason for that was because he felt an incomparably powerful power descending upon his body, causing the scene before his eyes to change. What's going on? Qin Nan tensed. He immediately unleashed the 12 arts of Tao seeking in his body. The scenery changed rapidly. A few moments later, everything around Qin Nan was covered in a white mist. Qin Nan lifted his gaze and was startled. A magnificent tree stood at the end of the path. It was none other than the celestial tree. Qin Nan suddenly sensed that his eye technique had reached an unbelievable level. It was able to penetrate the trunk of the heaven-reaching Tao tree and reach deep inside. His eyes saw a pool of water and an altar. The indestructible force? The art of the immortal demon? Qin Nan was even more startled. He had seen the same sight before. It happened when he was cultivating the Tao tree visualization pattern when he first came to the Tao seeking land. However, he did not do anything this time. Why would it still happen? Suddenly, a shocking scene occurred. The wisp of the indestructible force turned into the illusionary figure of a dragon. It soared into the sky from the pond, as if it was going to break through everything. Qin Nan's heart began to race. His body began to tremble. It felt like something that belonged to him was returning to his body. There was no sound in the scenery, yet Qin Nan felt like he heard a deafening blast. He saw the wisp of the indestructible force falling from the sky and returning to the pond. A mystical barrier appeared out of nowhere, blocking its path. However, it was not the end of it. On the other side, countless pitch-black words on the altar emitted a blinding glow. They soared into the sky like the indestructible force. The same feeling appeared in Qin Nan's heart once again, as if he could hear the same deafening roar. It was blocked by the barrier too. However, a few moments later, it did not return to the pond like the indestructible force. Its light grew brighter instead. In the end, its light penetrated the barrier and shone upon Qin Nan. Qin Nan's soul shuddered. A demonic aura burst out from his heart like a tiny snake. It entered Qin Nan's mind at a shocking pace and merged with the crystals. The crystals shuddered and emitted a brilliant glow. Bang! It felt like a bolt of lightning from the 9 heavens had struck down. At the beginning of the heavens and earth, there was no such thing as righteous and evil. There was no such thing as Buddha and demon. People said that the path of the demon cultivators originated from destruction, slaughter, cruelty, extremity, and everything negative in the world. However, the demon cultivators were not considered demons, but evil. The real demon cultivators were untamed. A voice like the chime of a bell echoed in Qin Nan's divine sense, as if a great existence had risen from the river of time and spoken to Qin Nan. Is this the art of the immortal demon? Qin Nan was astounded. What was going on? Why did the art of the immortal demon come back on its own? According to Mo Xie, he had to retrieve the art himself. The art did not show any reaction when he was in the Tao-seeking land, but why did it show up now? Could it be because of Xiang Hun and the princess? A thought crossed Qin Nan's mind. The more he thought about it, the more plausible it sounded. After all, Princess Miao Miao's and Jiang Bailan's flowers of eternity were slightly different from the real flowers of eternity. When the 2 flowers of eternity were combined together, they would emit an invisible force, resulting in such a change. Chapter 2176. After learning this, Qin Nan's heart was filled with excitement. Part of the reason was because he was Huang Fuju's reincarnation. The main reason was that the art of the immortal demon was like Zhoudi's indestructible flesh of eternity to Huang Fuju. It was Huang Fuju's core power. It was obvious how terrifying the art was. Even though Qin Nan was not fond of his identity as Huang Fuju's reincarnation, Qin Nan was eager to know what kind of art it was that allowed Huang Fuju to achieve the Supreme Highness realm and be on par with Zhoudi. Oh Xiang Hun, I bet you didn't expect your actions would lead to such a great change, did you? Qin Nan's eyes flickered murderously. He quickly calmed his thoughts and focused on the ancient voice. Time gradually passed. Elder Long, Su Ruochen, and the rest of the 9 heavens supremes finally comprehended the 6 formations after 10 days. Cultivator Qin Nan, we've all figured it out. We can practice the formations now. Elder Long yelled excitedly. He, Su Ruochen, and the rest of the 9 heavens supremes soon noticed something was not right. Why wasn't Qin Nan showing any reaction? No wonder the kid's martial talent is so insane. He's so immersed in the formation after practicing it for a while. This won't do, we have to wake him up. Elder Long transmitted his voice to Qin Nan. Under normal circumstances, he naturally wouldn't disturb them. However, things were a little different now. Because comprehending formations and using formations were 2 completely different things. Between cultivators, they had to practice and practice a lot in order to be able to unleash their full potential. Qin Nan was the backbone of the group, so it was necessary for him to take part in the process. However, Elder Long suddenly sensed an extremely terrifying presence the moment the divine sense was transmitted. It caused his body to shiver, and he subconsciously took a few steps back. Bang! A tremendous demonic intent burst out of Qin Nan's body. The water nearby immediately turned into a sea of demons. Su Ruochen and the rest of the 9 heavens supremes were startled. They felt like Qin Nan was an ancient demon. Their hearts skipped a beat. What kind of demonic art is he practicing? How can he unleash such a terrifying demonic intent? Many of the 9 heavens supremes gasped. From now on, no one is allowed to disturb friend Qin Nan. We'll practice the formations on our own. Su Ruochen collected his thoughts and made up his mind. However, what they did not expect was that Qin Nan was not practicing the martial art, but comprehending it instead. The secrets of the art of the immortal demon completely exceeded Qin Nan's imagination. Even with his outstanding martial talent, he had yet to fully comprehend it. Time gradually passed. The demonic intent that Qin Nan was emitting grew stronger. Su Ruochen and the rest of the 9 Heavens Supremes purposely stayed 1,000 li away so as not to disturb him, yet they were soon forced to stay 10,000 li away. On the 26th day, the ancient voice in Qin Nan's mind finally stopped echoing. He withdrew his thoughts from it. A generation of supreme celestial venerables is truly extraordinary, extraordinary. Qin Nan's heart was filled with astonishment. He realized something while he was comprehending the art of the immortal demon. It was not the complete art of the immortal demon in his body, but the general outline and the first half of the art of the immortal demon. The middle and second half of the art of the immortal demon were still in the celestial tree, perhaps due to the restriction of the mysterious force. However, it took Qin Nan 26 days to comprehend the general outline and the first half of the art of the immortal demon. On top of that, Qin Nan was still astounded by its thoughts and existence. The art of the immortal demon had 2 essences, the immortal demon and the superior demon. The immortal demon only appeared in the general outline. It did not appear in the first half of the art of the superior demon. The superior demon was referring to the demon above the demon. Once it was achieved, the person would be referred to as a demon highness. I'll practice the art of the immortal demon now. After calming his thoughts, Qin Nan immediately performed a magical hand seal with his hands. The demonic qi that had been hiding in his body was soon stirred. It floated out of his divine sense and circulated in his meridians, forming a huge cycle. As the saying went, the ancestors planted the trees and the descendants enjoyed the shade. Normally, anyone who wanted to practice the art of the immortal demon would have to obtain the blood of the heavenly demon, the heart of the earth demon, and the will of the human demon. They would have to repeat the process 999 times to produce the first stream of primordial qi. However, Qin Nan did not have to go through the process. He proceeded to the next step. The qi flowed through his meridians, resonated with his acupuncture points, and turned each of them into a demon. Once he achieved the art of the immortal demon, he would focus his mind and soul in the 103 acupuncture points to transcend the heavens and earth. He would then be able to derive the rules of the superior demon, which no longer existed in the rules of the heavens and earth. He would then be able to establish the superior demon world, which surpassed the primary upper realm and the secondary lower realm. It was the beginning of the art of the immortal demon. Only those in the ruler realm were able to peek into the power of rules. Only those in the Heaven Highness realm were able to create their own rules. However, the art of the immortal demon had completely broken the rules. Even though Qin Nan was only a peerless ruler, he was still able to derive the rules of the superior demon, or even the superior demon world. That being said, it did not necessarily mean Qin Nan had achieved the ruler realm. He still needed the most fundamental force to activate the art of the ruler realm. Bang bang bang! A few hours later, a series of rapid explosions took place on Qin Nan's body. Each time the explosions took place, a powerful force surged in all directions. Every acupuncture point in his body began to vibrate. Wisps of demonic intent were slowly accumulating inside them. As time passed, the explosions on Qin Nan's body became more rhythmic, with a regular pattern. Now that he had reached this point, he could be considered a demonic Tao cultivator. Time passed day by day. Su Ruochen, Elder Long, and the others began to construct all kinds of formations and unleash shocking auras. They had already familiarized themselves with the 6 sets of formations. They were currently heading toward the forbidden areas in the ocean that they had never dared to go to. They were using the formations to destroy the forbidding auras. Chapter 2177. Time gradually passed. 8 months later, during this period, the 19 branches of the celestial tree became livelier. Many rogue cultivators gave up on the thought of cultivating in seclusion as a safety precaution. They did not visit the other forbidden grounds either. A month ago, even the mysterious Li Yongfan, whose whereabouts were unknown, had shown up at the Li clan. Everyone could feel that a shocking storm was brewing. Even though there were still 5 to 6 months left, it was only a short period of time for people like them to cultivate in seclusion. Supreme Chang Shao was feeling a little annoyed in the city built by the Sky Taihuang sect. He even found the immortal tea that he loved to drink tasteless. Now that the situation had developed to such an extent, it was impossible for them to stick to their original plan of supporting Qin Nan in secret. They had to make a decision. Should he team up with Qin Nan or help Qin Nan? Supreme Chang Shao had already made up his mind, yet the Heaven Illusionary Ancestor sect and the Sanqing Ancient sect were still wavering. Their attitude kept changing. Supreme Chang Shao could understand why they were behaving this way, yet he was disdainful of them. The people of the two factions were too cowardly. Speaking of which, I wonder what the kid is up to. Supreme Chang Shao thought of Qin Nan. He was about to transmit his thought when he was startled. As a patriarch-level authority, his divine sense was extremely sharp. It felt like the immortal intent between the heavens and earth had shuddered for a brief moment. Supreme Chang Shao stopped paying attention to it. This kind of thing would happen at least 50 times a year. Following it, the magnificent immortal intent rippled again. It was a lot stronger than before. They could even faintly hear the sound of the water splashing. It was extremely rare. It only happened once every 2 years. It must be that traitor Xiang Hun's doing. Supreme Chang Zhao's expression turned cold. He was not fond of Xiang Hun either. However, a few moments later, Supreme Chang Shao gradually realized that something was not right. The ripples of the immortal intent between the heavens and earth did not stop. They continued to grow stronger each time. It reminded Supreme Chang Shao of something that happened a long time ago. When he was still a 9 Heavens Supreme in the Greater Success stage, he once saw the celestial tree blossoming. It was exactly the same as what was happening now. Don't tell me, a shocking thought crossed Supreme Chang Zhao's mind. He could not sit still any longer. He appeared above the city with a flicker. Many 9 Heavens Supremes were around him. He glanced into the distance and saw figures appearing above the other ancient cities too. Obviously, most people had realized that something was wrong. What's going on? The celestial tree is blossoming? Or did Xiang Hun do something to it? While the 9 Heavens Supremes were discussing among themselves in confusion, the veins on the giant leaves at the top of the celestial tree suddenly turned pure golden. They spread across the leaves and downward. Around half the period it took an incense stick to burn, a 9 Heavens Supreme who was observing the leaves with an eye technique blurted out with widened eyes, "The leaves are changing color." The words served as a shocking clap of thunder. Supreme Chang Shao and the other 9 Heavens Supremes immediately looked in the direction of the leaves. They were dumbfounded when they saw the leaves that were turning golden. Immortal intent surged as the golden leaves appeared. It was the sign of the blossoming of the celestial tree. It had never happened before. Hurry up and inform the other elders. Tell them to think of a way to get here. The authorities of various factions yelled after collecting their thoughts. Whoosh! As more golden leaves appeared, the immortal intent of the heaven-reaching Dao tree spread across a few million li. The ripples grew stronger like tides rolling between the heavens and earth. Sometimes there would even be huge ripples that would appear. At this moment, all of the cultivators were shocked, without exception. Even Zhuang Nan and the other 9 Heavens Supremes woke up from their seclusion. They were astounded by the sight before them. Not long after, the last leaf turned golden too. A shocking rare phenomenon took place as soon as it turned golden. Each of the leaves seemed to have come alive. They emitted a brilliant golden glow, illuminating the whole place with a golden glow. The terrifying aura that the celestial tree was emitting grew rapidly. It surged across the place like an unprecedented calamity. All kinds of rare phenomena took place in the sky. There were goddesses dancing, beasts roaring, and 10 suns circling in the sky. Even though there was no storm, the 9 heaven supremes on the 19 branches felt like they were in a great mess. They felt minuscule like dust. It was only the beginning. Meanwhile, Xiang Hun was startled too. His eyes flickered with astonishment when he saw the scene. Xiang Hun. What's going on? Why did it activate in advance? The authorities of various factions immediately transmitted their voices to him after sensing his aura. Some of them wore unpleasant expressions as they snapped at him. The reason for that was because many of them had gone to extremely distant places, or were in secluded cultivation in other places. It seems like I've overestimated the celestial tree's strength. Xiang Hun came to a realization after a slight ponder. It was reasonable that the celestial tree had weakened after so many years. As for the questioning from the other major forces, he couldn't be bothered to respond. In any case, this wouldn't affect his plan at all. Hurry up and transmit your voice to the kid. Don't miss out on the opportunity. Supreme Chang Shao transmitted his voice as a thought crossed his mind. Meanwhile, in the westernmost land, Qin Nan's eyes sprang open all of a sudden. It felt like his surroundings were slightly dimmed. So it's activated in advance, Qin Nan murmured. He slowly rose to his feet. A series of crackling sounds burst out of his body as a terrifying demonic aura surged across the place. The ocean within a few 10,000 li began to boil rapidly. Everyone, let's go! Qin Nan transmitted his voice. Chapter 2178. Time gradually passed. 2 days later, the entire southernmost land changed after 2 days and 2 nights of great chaos. The sky was dyed in 9 different colors. The vast land was covered in a layer of golden veil. The rules of the Tao-seeking land were replaced by new rules. Those who had not experienced it would feel like they had arrived at a brand new world. Apart from the heaven-reaching Tao tree, everything else was different from the rest. The 9 heaven supremes who had witnessed the blossoming of the celestial tree knew the 9 colors in the sky were the colors of the heaven-reaching Tao flower. When the 9 colors merged into one, it meant the heaven-reaching Tao fruit was formed. The cultivators had gathered on the 19th and 18th branches. Once the heaven-reaching Tao fruit was formed, the terrifying aura of the celestial tree would dissipate, allowing them to head to the top of the tree. On the 20th day, the celestial tree would emit a terrifying aura again. Look, it's Xiang Qi who's ranked 3rd on the Supreme Leaderboard. Zheng Ho who's ranked 2nd on the Supreme Leaderboard is here too. Apart from Li Yangfan who's ranked 1st on the Supreme Leaderboard, I'm afraid the rest of the experts on the Supreme Leaderboard are here too. As more and more figures appeared, more and more voices rang out. Normally, it would be impossible to see all the people on the Sovereign Leaderboard gathered in one place. In the past, the people on the Supreme Leaderboard were the brightest among the cultivators. Most people would place their attention on them. However, the rogue cultivators only took a quick glance at them before shifting their attention away. The reason being that the 6th Immortal and the reincarnation of Supreme Highness Zhou Di were here too. Look, the clouds in the sky are starting to gather. At this rate, the heaven-reaching Tao fruit will be formed in less than an hour. Why hasn't Qin Nan shown up yet? Is he not going to show up this time? I wouldn't come if I were him. The formidable factions and the 6th Immortal have already set up a trap. What's the difference between coming here and committing suicide? I might as well wait for another 10 years. Not long after, the entire branch became a bit more lively. The faces of many of the leaders of the major forces darkened, and their faces were as pale as water. If Qin Nan really did not come this time, not to mention that their previous plans would all be in vain, it was completely impossible to say what would happen after 10 years. Xiang Hun sat on a throne and drank cups of blood-red immortal wine. His expression remained unchanged as he stared ahead. Meanwhile, a white figure was weaving through the 9 heavens supremes. She suddenly came to a stop and blurted out in astonishment, "Jiang and I?" Jiang and I was completely different from before. His hair was disheveled, he was wearing linen, and his eyes were cloudy. They were no longer as cold and sharp as before. Jiang and I turned his head and said indifferently, "Long time no see, Taoist Lu." The white figure was none other than the saintess of the tribe of immortal spirits, Lu Qinin. Lu Qinin wore a charming smile like a blossoming flower. "Even though I didn't have much interaction with you in the past, it must be fate that we're able to meet again." Indeed, this was a rare kind of fate. When she became a peerless ruler and went to the 72 sacred areas of the heavens and earth to achieve the 9 heavens supreme realm, she had stumbled into a lot of outstanding cultivators. However, she rarely encountered them as time went by, as many of them had died. Some had reached the peerless ruler realm, while others had grown stronger. They were no longer in the same circle. For example, Qin Nan. She had used all kinds of methods to kill the man, but she eventually realized that the man had improved tremendously. She could only look up to him now. She had achieved the greater success stage of the 9 heavens supreme realm. She was one of the strongest among the 9 heavens supremes, yet the difference between her and the man was just too great. Lu Qinin continued to smile when she saw Jiang and I remaining silent. "I heard that you treated Qin Nan as your opponent. Do you still treat him as your opponent?" Jiang Ni's cloudy eyes emitted a sharp flicker. Lu Qinin was startled. The sharpness left as quickly as it came. Jiang and I said indifferently, "Yes or no." Lu Qinin was startled. She thought about it carefully. The answer sounded simple, yet it had a lot to it. The heaven-reaching Dao fruit is about to appear. A huge yell took place. Lu Qinin and Jiang and I lifted their gaze. It felt like a giant hand had reached down from the sky and stirred the 9 colors in the sky. The colors gradually merged into one as they were stirred. There was still no sign of anyone ahead of them. All kinds of voices began to ring out. Some were disappointed, some were shaking their heads, some were even disdainful. Lu Qinin pursed her lips and remained silent. Jiang and I asked thoughtfully, "Do you think he's coming?" Lu Qinin smiled and said, "I'm his enemy, how would I know?" She paused for a moment. Her eyes flickered with a complicated look as she said, "But I can feel that he's coming." Jiang and I didn't say anything else. He looked ahead, and after a few dozen breaths of time, his pupils constricted. "Look, it's here." The 9 heavens supremes were startled when they noticed something. Both the 9 heavens supremes in the greater success stage and the reputable cultivators on the supreme leaderboard immediately focused their attention on the sky ahead. A ray of light approached from the distance and grew bigger. They finally saw it clearly. A dragon over 500,000 zhang long with scales the color of immortal blood, ferocious dragon horns and chilling fangs, and an overwhelming aura soared across the sky and flew toward Qin Nan. 2 women stood on the dragon's head, one on the left and one on the right. Their dresses were drifting in the wind. Between them was a young man in a long black robe. His face was expressionless, and he was not unleashing any aura, yet he had an imperious aura. Roar! The blood dragon let out a roar that shook the surroundings. One of the 6 great battle formations, the Dragon Roaring Formation. Chapter 2179. The atmosphere between the heavens and earth tensed all of a sudden. All kinds of noises were heard too. Many rogue cultivators tensed up slightly, and their heartbeats began to accelerate inexplicably, because they could feel that a terrifying torrent was about to erupt in this tranquility. "Do it!" Zheng Ho, the saint of the Zheng clan, was the first to give the order after around 10 breaths. The 9 heavens supremes of the Zheng clan immediately unleashed their auras. They dashed forward and performed hand seals. In less than a breath's time, they established an ancient formation that turned into an ancient sword slashing at Qin Nan. The secret of the Zheng clan, the sword hook sacred formation. Let's do it too. The patriarchs and saints of the other factions gave the order too. Ancient formations and Tao-seeking weapons appeared on the 19th and 18th branches. They emitted different glows and tore the rift apart with strong gusts of wind. On top of it, the ancient cities and palaces constructed by various factions on the 3rd to 19th branches were activated too. They unleashed tremendous energy waves as they locked onto Qin Nan. Even though they were caught off guard by the arrival of the heavens and earth a few months earlier than expected, they still managed to set up an inescapable trap in just 2 days. It basically means the entire 9 heavens immortal realm is targeting Qin Nan. The rogue cultivators could not help but exclaim in their hearts. Qin Nan's expression remained the same. He did not unleash any aura either, as if he had no intention of making a move. Roar. Qin Nan did not move, but the blood dragon under him moved. Its enormous claws slammed into the ancient immortal sword, resulting in a shocking blast. The sword was knocked a few thousand zhang away by a formidable force. The blood dragon swung its tail again, and its huge body became extremely agile. It dodged all the formations and killing intent. It opened its mouth and spewed out surging flames in all directions. Bang bang bang! A series of deafening explosions took place between the heavens and earth. The terrifying shockwaves turned the rift into chaos. Such a powerful formation! The eyes of the sect masters and sacred princes froze. Even with so many major forces taking action, they were still unable to suppress Qin Nan and the others. They only slowed down the speed of Qin Nan and the others. Xiang Hun wasn't surprised at all. He knew how powerful the 6 battle formations were. However, he did not make a move, nor did he inform the major forces of how to deal with the situation. This was because he sensed that the wisp of eternal indestructible power in the celestial tree had yet to move. According to his speculations, only when Qin Nan reached the peak of the mountain would the strange phenomenon be triggered, and the wisp of eternal indestructible force would appear. Therefore, what he needed now was for both sides to fight and weaken each other. 1. Right at this moment, the heavens and earth trembled. The 9 colors in the sky completely merged together, turning into a soul-stirring dark purple light. The celestial tree's boundless pressure was like a tide of prosperity. All of it merged into the tree, and not a single trace of it was emitted. The celestial tree was clearer and more real than before. We can head to the top of the tree now. The rogue cultivators were the first to react. They turned into rays of light and flew up the tree without any hesitation. Lure Qin Nan here. The authorities of various factions exchanged glances and transmitted their thoughts. The formations stopped attacking Qin Nan. They surrounded Qin Nan's back and sides instead, as if they were forcing Qin Nan toward the celestial tree. Qin Nan remained still as if he did not hear them. His eyes were fixed on the authorities. The blood dragon stopped flying forward. It lifted its head and fixed its gaze on the top of the tree. The authorities of various factions quickly came up with a plan. When the blood dragon was not too far away from them, they immediately activated the arts of Tao seeking in their bodies. Qin Nan, you demon, you have committed an unforgivable crime. I'm going to send you to hell even if I have to give up my golden body. Holy monk Wang Jin yelled. He turned into a wrathful warrior and executed a Bodhi scripture with the Bodhi scepter in his hand. The rest of the authorities immediately made their move. Meanwhile, the ancient cities and palaces soared into the sky while emitting an ancient aura. It transformed into a boundless ocean of aura that seemed like it was going to devour everything. 6 suns penetrating the ancients. Su Ruochen, Elder Long, and the 9 heavens supremes were well prepared. They performed a hand seal and engulfed each other in flames. The flames quickly merged into one within the blink of an eye. The blood dragon's aura skyrocketed as if it had put on an unbeatable armor. Dragons soaring into the 9 heavens. The 9 heavens supremes of various factions felt the scenery around them changing rapidly following the dragon's cry. The celestial tree was gone. It was replaced by a boundless ocean of blood. The blood dragon came out of the ocean and tore everything in its path apart. An illusion? Hang on. Many of the authorities were startled. The blood dragon seemed to have become invisible. The killing intent, formation power, and aura had all passed through it without inflicting any damage. It can only maintain this state for 10 breaths, Xiang Hun said. He could not just watch Qin Nan nullify the formation of so many factions with ease. Let's hold back for now and surround it. The leaders of the various forces made a prompt decision and changed their tactic. The shocking battle came to an end. Only the sound of wind whistling could be heard. Qin Nan shifted his gaze to the celestial tree. The veins on each branch and each leaf contained an indescribable mystical aura. Some places had wisps of immortal glow, artifacts, secret arts, and natural resources. Every time the celestial tree blossomed, it would become an unprecedented grand event in the Tao-seeking land. The 5 heaven-reaching Tao fruits were not the only thing that attracted people's attention. There were other fortunate encounters too. On top of it, the top of the tree would turn into a shocking cultivation ground. Even those who failed to secure the Tao fruits would benefit greatly from it, especially those who had mastered the Tao realm. Chapter 2180. 10 breaths have passed. The eyes of the various heavyweights instantly became incomparably sharp. Countless murderous intents were unleashed once again. From afar, it felt like a huge net had been set up in all directions, sealing off every angle, leaving Qin Nan and the others with no way to escape. White flames burst out deep inside Qin Nan's eyes. His arm turned into the heaven-shattering saber. Transform! The blood dragon under him broke into pieces and turned into the figures of the 9 heavens supremes. However, they did not scatter across the place. They split into 10 groups instead. 10,000 Heavenly Feather Formation. Ancient Destruction Formation. White light dots burst out of the bodies of the 9 heavens supremes in 5 groups like a blizzard. Meanwhile, the other 5 groups unleashed their auras like sabers and spears. Bang bang bang. Following a series of explosions, the leaders of the various factions saw their killing intents and other weapons being dragged into a white fog and falling in other places. Furthermore, the power unleashed by the 5 groups far surpassed their expectations. The seemingly incomparably astonishing seal above them was forcibly breached, and a sizable gap appeared. Crap! The faces of the leaders of the various factions changed slightly. Qin Nan was long prepared for it. He brought the 2 women with him and charged out of the gap. He soared into the sky like a giant ping spreading its wings. Damn it! Many authorities wore unpleasant looks on their faces. Did Qin Nan really manage to break through the barrier despite teaming up with so many factions? Qin Nan was not far away from the top of the tree. Together with his burst of speed, he soon arrived at the top of the tree under the crowd's gaze. The eyes of Qin Nan and the 2 women were filled with astonishment. The top of the tree was encapsulated by a strong glow. The moment they stepped onto it, they felt like they had arrived at an ancient sacred place made of pure immortal intent. If they were to cultivate here for a day, their cultivation speed would be increased by at least 100 times, not to mention the other benefits. On top of it, there were wisps of immortal glow flickering among the glow like bamboo shoots after a rain. Most importantly, there were 10 fruits floating in the air at the center. They were covered in mystical runes, as if they had gathered the secrets of the heavens and earth. They were the heaven-reaching Tao fruits. 10 heaven-reaching Tao fruits? At this time, many rogue cultivators and the leaders of the big forces had reached the peak of the mountain. When they saw the scene in front of them, they were shocked and could not believe their eyes. The Tao-seeking land would only produce 1 to 5 fruits every time it blossomed, especially after the terrifying battle in the ancient times. It had only produced 1 or 2 fruits for many years. Only 3 to 4 heaven-reaching Dao fruits appeared in the past. 5 heaven-reaching Dao fruits were extremely rare. Even if your celestial tree is formed by the ultimate Tao, it won't stand a chance against the eternity fruit. Xiang Hun had reached the top of the mountain too. He was proud of the fruits instead of being surprised. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A series of rapid whooshes soon took place. The rogue cultivators' eyes burned passionately as they collected their thoughts. They immediately executed all kinds of moves. They never thought they would be able to claim the heaven-reaching Tao fruits, but it was different now. They had a great chance to claim them. Qin Nan's eyes glittered as he made his move. Qin Nan, don't even think about it. A ferocious roar exploded above his head, as a young man with sharp eyebrows and an extraordinary aura suddenly appeared before him. He held an ancient sword in his hand, which was emitting a tremendous sword intent as he slashed in Qin Nan's direction. It was the saint of the Zheng clan, Zheng Ho. Blooming of the Bodhi flower, Buddhas of all living things. Holy monk Wang Jin's glaring eyes came from the distance too. White flowers blossomed on his golden hand as he swung it at Qin Nan to vent his anger that he had accumulated over the past few months. Crimson Emperor's saber intent. Qin Nan's figure flickered as he slashed forward with the combination of the 9 arts. Kill! The 9 heavens supremes of various factions, Su Ruochen, Elder Long, and the others had gathered at the top of the tree. Their murderous intent soared into the sky. Even though Su Ruochen, Elder Long, and the others' formation was a lot smaller than the alliance of the formidable factions, they were still able to unleash a shocking strength under the influence of the 6-gate battle formation and the unity of mind. The formidable factions only had a slight upper hand for now. Besides, the temptation of the 10 heaven-reaching Tao fruits was just too great. Those who had been stuck in the peak 9 heavens supreme realm for a few hundred years or even over 1,000 years were unable to calm themselves down. They quickly shifted their focus away. After all, once they defeated Qin Nan, the cultivators of the formidable factions would receive the real benefits. They would not be able to reap the benefits alone. Cultivators, you have seen how strong the people that Qin Nan has brought are. In any case, it's still the same. This choice is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for all of you. Supreme Chang Shao transmitted his thought upon seeing this. He drew his sword and pointed it forward without any hesitation. Do you think you can bully the people of the Sky Universe as you wish? Supreme Chang Shao charged forward with an imperious aura. Supreme Huanglei and the other 9 heavens supremes followed closely behind him. The patriarchs of the Heaven Illusionary Ancestors sect and the Sanqing Ancient sect were startled. They clenched their teeth and made up their minds. Help Qin Nan. The 9 heavens supremes began to execute their moves under the orders of the 2 authorities. These 3 supreme Taoism factions are helping Qin Nan? When the other major forces saw this, their eyes immediately turned cold. In addition to it, Xiang Qi, who was leading the people of the Sherdao tribe, secretly switched their focus to the heaven-reaching Dao fruit. The Mumen sect did the same too. They had made their decision too. Xiang Hun, aren't you going to make your move? Some of the tycoons could not help but growl as they felt the pressure increase. Be patient, Xiang Hun said calmly. He placed his hands behind him and stayed out of the battle. As far as he was concerned, the fact that both sides were evenly matched was undoubtedly the best outcome. Is it coming? Chapter 2181. Zhuang Nan, think of a way to suppress the 2 women with Qin Nan. Xiang Hun transmitted his voice as a thought crossed his mind. He was familiar with Qin Nan's personality. Even if something went wrong, as long as he had Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan under his control, Qin Nan would surely lower his head to him. Patriarch Xiang, can't you let me fight Qin Nan first? I was defeated by Qin Nan last time. It's the perfect time to avenge myself with the coexistence of 9 fleshes, yet you are asking me to deal with the 2 women instead? Zhuang Nan wore a displeased look. He initially wanted to use the opportunity to display the power of the coexistence of 9 fleshes to the world. However, how could he possibly have the chance to fight the 2 women? However, before he could finish his sentence, he saw Xiang Hun's cold gaze. He could only shrug. You guys, join me in the battle. Zhuang Nan picked a few 9 heavens, supremes of the heaven-repelling ancient sect, and disappeared into the crowd like a phantom. Xiang Hun and the others are making their moves. Many authorities were relieved when they sensed Xiang Hun's presence. If Xiang Hun continued to sit back and watch them fight, they would be in a disadvantageous position if both sides suffered great losses. However, the battle was too huge. Apart from Xiang Hun, Qin Nan, and the 2 women, no one else noticed the unusual change of the light. It's here. An ancient demonic intent flickered in Qin Nan's eyes. Dang, dang, dang. An ancient chime of a bell took place at a steady pace. It clearly entered the ears of every cultivator. The 9 heavens supremes finally realized that something was not right. Bang! In the end, the heaven-reaching Tao tree shuddered slightly. The glow on the tree rose into the sky like an eruption. It soared into the clouds at a shocking pace. A palace over 10,000 zhang tall and 1,000 zhang wide, which looked like it was carved out of an enormous piece of immortal jade by a peerless master, slowly appeared. It was translucent and emitted a blue glow. What is that? The authorities and the 9 heavens supremes were astounded by the sight. Every time the heaven-reaching Tao tree blossomed and bore fruits, it had never seen a palace like this. Wait! Those who had achieved the 9 heavens supreme realm were not idiot. They immediately recalled the 5 extra heaven-reaching Tao fruits and Xiang Hun's attitude. It was obvious that Xiang Hun and Qin Nan were aware of it too. It was very likely that they had been planning to set up the palace all along. The former was not here for the undying cycle mountain and the ownerless heaven pattern, while the latter was not here for the heaven-reaching Tao fruits either. Princess Lanlan will stick to our plan. Stay here and try your best to claim the heaven-reaching Tao fruits and achieve the master realm. Qin Nan transmitted his voice. Xiao Nanzi, since when are you so naggy? Hurry up and go. Remember to teach that traitor Xiang Hun a lesson. Otherwise, I'm going to teach you a lesson. Princess Miao Miao threatened. Jiang Bailan nodded. Got it. Qin Nan let out a smile upon hearing this, as his aura skyrocketed. Break. Qin Nan immediately gathered the Tao intents of the 12 arts of Tao seeking. They turned into a peerless saber glow slashing forward. Following a series of explosions, the traps that Jing Ho, Holy Monk Wang Jin, and the rest of the authorities had set up were shattered. Qin Nan's figure went past them and headed straight for the palace. On the other hand, Xiang Hun sprang into the sky too. The 2 were on the left and right respectively, yet they did not seem to notice each other. They did not even look at each other, nor did they make a move. Let's go in together. The cultivators on the Supreme Leaderboard made their moves without hesitation. The Peak 9 Heavens Supremes and Rogue Cultivators gave up on the heaven-reaching Tao fruits and followed them. Open! A few moments later, Qin Nan and Xiang Hun both yelled. A saber glow and a hand seal landed on the door with destructive force. The door shattered into light dots following 2 loud blasts. At the same time, an ancient will of eternity, a tremendous demonic intent, and a mysterious will burst out from it like 3 peerless torrents. Qin Nan and Xiang Hun did not dodge the will. They resisted it with ease. However, their eyes flickered with astonishment. The former did not expect there to be a 3rd will here. It did not seem to be any weaker than the will of eternity and demonic intent. As for the latter, he was even more confused. Crap! In comparison to them, the authorities, Peak 9 Heavens Supremes, and the rogue cultivators behind them were startled. In particular, those who had yet to make it onto the sovereign leaderboard could only sense how terrifying the three wills were. It was like an unprecedented calamity. A shocking sense of danger surged in their hearts, and they quickly backed away. Qin Nan and Xiang Hun collected their thoughts and went into the palace together. The authorities and Peak Nine Heavens Supremes did not back away. They followed closely behind them with their strongest move. They soon saw the interior of the palace. The walls were engraved with ancient drawings. Most of the drawings depicted mountains, rivers, trees, and flowers. Only 4 of the drawings depicted cultivators. However, their appearances were blurred out, making it impossible to see them clearly. At the end of the palace, on the far left, was a pond with a circumference of less than 3 zhang. The inside of the pond was filled with various kinds of light. Even though it was not huge, the 9 Heavens Supremes could sense a mystical energy ripple from it. At the center was a jade-colored stone pillar with a brocade box on it. The box was open, revealing a pitch-black seed inside. It was not emitting any aura. On the right was an altar less than 5 zhang wide. A thick book made of stone was floating on it. The book contained a tremendous demonic intent, as if it was the origin of all demons in the world. Chapter 2182. The authorities and 9 Heavens Supremes might not know what the 3 things were, but Xiang Hun was well aware of them. The seed in the middle was clearly the origin seed of the celestial tree. The celestial tree was not only formed by the ultimate Tao. It was involved when Zhou Di, Tsang, and the others were trying to achieve the Supreme Highness realm. Unfortunately, it did not succeed. Only Zhou Di, Tsang, and the others managed to achieve the Supreme Highness realm. However, not everyone was able to achieve the Supreme Highness realm together with Zhou Di, Tsang, and the others during the glorious era. The celestial tree was able to achieve the same feat. Many heaven highnesses already paled in comparison to it. Now that the origin seed of the celestial tree had appeared, if they could claim it, they would be able to nurture another celestial tree. It would bring them endless benefits. Xiang Hun was most shocked by the stone scriptures on the altar on the right. If he remembered correctly, the stone scriptures were most likely the art of the immortal demon that Huang Fu Ju had invented. Even though Xiang Hun believed the indestructible flesh of eternity was the strongest in the world, many people believed the art was on par with the indestructible flesh of eternity in the past. Xiang Hun initially planned to look for the art and the secrets of the other 2 Supreme Highnesses after he achieved the indestructible flesh of eternity. But Xiang Hun did not expect it to show up here. Qin Nan, did you already know? Or was it all part of your plan? Did you purposely place a wisp of the indestructible force here? Xiang Hun transmitted his voice after collecting his thoughts. So what if I did? So what if I didn't? What's the point of talking about it now? Qin Nan chuckled coldly. Ha ha, indeed, it's meaningless to talk about it now. Everything has exceeded your expectations. Xiang Hun burst out laughing and said, "That being said, I didn't expect such a surprise. As a matter of fact, even though I know you won't agree to it, I still want to say it. If you leave now, I won't attack you again. I won't try to steal your undying cycle mountain and the ownerless heaven pattern. More than a year later, I will even help you deal with Song. What do you think?" Qin Nan's eyes were filled with disdain after hearing the words. This is? Why would Xiang Hun want him to back off? What a joke. Whoosh. Qin Nan didn't answer him. He just moved like a divine dragon emerging from the sea. His big hand directly grabbed the 3 objects. His action explained everything. Why bother? 2. Seeing this, Hun shook his head. Not only did he have to be a traitor, he also had to be labeled as someone who killed his own master. And, at the same time, on top of the tree. The 9 Heavens Supremes quickly gave up on the thought when they realized the palace was not a place they could easily enter. Although, that said, they wanted to know exactly what was inside that palace. However, they knew very well that it was a battle that surpassed their level. Fear. Even the sect masters and saint princes of the various forces would be reduced to mere foils, let alone them. Therefore? However, the appearance of the palace did not change the situation on the top of the tree. It was still as chaotic as before, with cries of battle echoing across the place. Meow? Princess Meow and Jiang Bailan had displayed strength comparable to the cultivators on the supreme leaderboard. The former had fully utilized the soulless flesh and the seal that Senior Earth had taught her, resulting in an outstanding strength. Jiang Bailan had practiced a sword art. Her movements were accompanied by the shadows of her swords. Even 9 Heavens Supremes had trouble fending her off. TSK, not bad, not bad. You two are quite impressive. At least it won't be too boring for me. A strange voice suddenly appeared beside them. The 2 women turned around and saw Zhuang Nan. Meow? Princess Meow's eyes flickered with disdain. She looked away and said, He's so ugly. Jiang? Bailan nodded in agreement. Zhuang? Nan's lips twisted. Ugly? What the heck? Don't? At their level, even if they had achieved the martial monarch realm, they could no longer care about their appearance. Moreover, he already said he was not ugly. Little girl, are you trying to influence my mind with those words? Aren't you underestimating me? Today, I shall teach you a lesson on behalf of Qin Nan. Zhuang Nan clenched his teeth. 9 rays of light burst out of his back. 9 different forces surged in the 2 women's direction. Humph, you might not know, but I'm the one who taught Xiao Nanzi everything. Princess Meow Meow was not intimidated at all. She performed a hand seal, summoning a formidable force of the heavens and earth that turned into an enormous mountain that descended from the sky. Jiang Bailan moved nimbly while unleashing her sword aura. Bang bang bang! A series of explosions took place. A shocking battle took place between the 3 in just a few breaths. Without being exaggerating, the battle between the 3 was the most intense one on the top of the tree. Ordinary 9 Heavens Supremes were no match for it. Sword connecting the heavens. As Princess Meow Meow executed a secret art to drag Zhuang Nan into a new world, Jiang Bailan unleashed a brilliant light that merged with her sword. The speed of this sword had reached an incomparably shocking level. Before anyone could see anything, the sword light had already landed on Zhuang Nan's body and struck him squarely. Bang! Strong gusts of wind surged in all directions. Xiao Lanlan, that's so cool, Princess Meow Meow said with a hint of envy. Chapter 2183. Meanwhile, in the God Palace, the battle had begun. Xiang Hun flicked his finger. A ray of light like a peerless sword slashed at the giant hand that Qin Nan had summoned at a shocking pace and shattered it into pieces. At the same time, he moved his body and appeared directly above the 3 objects. It was the same move as the Skystride blow. He had been observing the 7 forms of the Divine God of Battle when the Divine God of Battle invented them. Drawl, Qin Nan's eyes burst into white flames. The chaotic force in the pond and the scriptures on the altar began to vibrate vigorously. They were trying to fly into Qin Nan's body as if they were being summoned. The others might need to claim the 2 artifacts, but Qin Nan did not need them, as they belonged to Qin Nan to begin with. Xiang Hun's eyes widened. He initially wanted to claim the 3 artifacts with force, but he did not expect Qin Nan to be able to do it. Xiang Hun performed a hand seal in the nick of time. Seal of Dao Seizing. A magnificent force burst out of it and turned into 3 illusionary figures sitting on the 3 objects. The indestructible force and the art of the immortal demon immediately calmed down. He's temporarily separating the 3 objects from this world and placing them in another world? Qin Nan immediately realized what was going on. he immediately unleashed the Tao intents of the 12 arts of Tao seeking in the form of 12 rays of light. Amitabha, these 3 objects are destined to belong to Buddhism. Holy monk Wang Jin uttered a chant and emitted a blinding glow. Wang Jin, aren't you ashamed to say something like that? Zheng Ho, Xiang Qi, Wang Tianfang, and the rest of the saints and patriarchs made their moves after collecting their thoughts. They did not continue to attack Qin Nan. They were not idiot. They could tell how precious the 3 objects were. If they continued to attack Qin Nan, they would only end up benefiting Xiang Hun. The entire divine palace instantly fell into chaos. With the likes of you, you want to get your hands on those 3 things? Xiang Hun's eyes turned cold. However, just as he was about to make a move, a beautiful figure flew into the divine palace from outside at an astonishing speed. Just as everyone sensed it, the figure had already arrived in front of the celestial tree seed and slapped out with her jade-like hand. Bang! With a loud bang, the shadowy figure sitting cross-legged above disappeared. The celestial tree seed was also taken away by the jade-like hand. Who are you? Xiang Hun's expression froze. This person's explosive speed was so fast that even he couldn't react in time. From this, it could be seen that it was extraordinary. Qin Nan and the others all turned to look at him. It's him. When Qin Nan saw this, he was stunned. The person who came was a woman. She wore a robe with golden patterns and had an impressive figure. Her long hair hung down to her waist, and a white veil covered her face. This was the woman Qin Nan had encountered in the terrifying path of beast eyes in the far west. Li Yongfan? The eyes of Zheng Ho, Xiang Qi, Wang Tianfang, and the others flickered with astonishment. They initially thought Li Yongfan wouldn't show up even when the divine palace bore fruit. She's the one ranked first on the supreme leaderboard? Qin Nan was startled. No wonder she possessed such outstanding strength. I was wondering who it was, so it's you. You've mastered an extraordinary path of cultivation at such a young age. You're quite impressive indeed. The Li clan has finally found a successor. Xiang Hun said with a smile. I'm quite close to the Li clan. That seed isn't something you can lay your hands on. Hand it over, and I won't make things difficult for you. Li Yongfan glanced at him without saying a word. However, a mystical aura began to rise from her feet and began to coil around her body. The patterns on the walls of the divine palace began to glow as if they had woken up from ancient times. A strong aura surged in all directions. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment. Li Yongfan was giving him a mystical feeling. She felt like she was a 9 Heavens Supreme, or even stronger than a 9 Heavens Supreme. Besides, Li Yongfan's aura was similar to the celestial tree's aura. Is that? Xiang Hun was startled. He blurted out as a thought crossed his mind, You're the successor of the celestial tree? Li Yongfan nodded. She said calmly, 10 years ago, my master picked my daughter, so I've become her successor. Hearing these words, the eyes of the crowd were filled with astonishment. They were well aware of how terrifying the celestial tree was. If Li Yongfan had become its successor, she would have a bright future, not to mention her outstanding talents. Xiang Hun's expression darkened slightly. He did not expect something like this to happen. He was planning to claim the celestial tree's seed too. Since the celestial tree has chosen you as its successor, you may take it. Xiang Hun waved his hand after calming his thoughts. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint Patriarch Xiang. Li Yongfan remained still. What is it? Are you trying to get your hands on those 2 things too? Xiang Hun's expression turned cold. An icy murderous aura burst out of his body as he said, You might be the successor of the celestial tree, and you're currently on the celestial tree. You have all the advantages, but don't you think I can't take you out? He was well aware that the celestial tree's true form was not allowed to interfere in the Tao-seeking land. Li Yongfan shook her head and said, Patriarch Xiang, you've misunderstood me. My master almost disappeared after failing to achieve the Supreme Highness realm. Thanks to the help of the 4 Supreme Highnesses, she managed to preserve her true form and settle down in the Tao-seeking land to recover. How could we possibly lay our hands on the things left by Supreme Highness Eternity and Supreme Immortal? She added after a slight pause. However, Supreme Highness Eternity and Supreme Immortal left the 2 things here and asked my master to let them follow their fate. Xiang Hun squinted and said, "Follow their fate? What do you mean by that?" Li Yangfan said, "Fate is elusive and hard to determine. However, in the world where we live, there was a saying that the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit when the great Tao and the martial arts were born." Chapter 2184. What a joke! Xiang Hun snickered and said in a thunderous voice, "The appearance of any artifact will cause rivers of blood to flow and countless lives to be lost. Isn't it the same every time the celestial tree bears fruits? And now you're challenging me to a duel?" Li Yangfan's eyes flickered. She said calmly, "Patriarch Xiang, even if you aren't pleased, my master has already made up her mind. This is the only way. If you still don't agree, you don't have to take part in it." Xiang Hun's eyes flickered coldly. How dare the successor of the celestial tree speak to him like that? Li Yangfan said when he was about to turn hostile, "By the way, Patriarch Xiang, even though my master has promised not to interfere with the Tao-seeking land when she entered it, but my master has given away a lot of heaven-reaching Tao fruits for free over the years. Many 9 Heavens Supremes have successfully achieved the Master Realm. It's a great contribution. If she makes an exception and uses some of her power to kill someone who shouldn't exist in the Tao-seeking land, the Tao-seeking land won't think she's breaking the rules." Xiang Hun's figure stiffened upon hearing this. Was she threatening him? Very well, Xiang Hun blurted out after a slight hesitation. He said grimly, "If that's the case, we'll do as you say. However, you better remember what you said, you won't lay your hands on those 2 things." Even though he believed the celestial tree's true form was not going to do anything, he was still going to claim the 2 things regardless of whether it was a battle royale or a duel. However, he was extremely displeased by the celestial tree's decision. Li Yangfan looked at the others and said, "What do you all think?" It went without saying that Qin Nan had no problem with it. A duel like this would only bring him benefit. Zheng Ho, Xiang Qi, Wang Tianfang, and the others were unwilling to accept it, but what else could they do when Xiang Hun had already given in? Seeing this, Li Yangfan waved her hand, causing a tremendous change to take place in the palace. The pond and the altar at the end of the path rose into the air and floated in the air. They were encapsulated by a mystical force, which was obviously to prevent anyone from changing their mind and forcibly taking them away. An ancient force was emitted from the ancient drawings on the walls, which merged with one another and transformed into 3 rings. "Fellow Taoists, we will draw lots for the first round," Li Yangfan said. Xiang Hun grunted coldly and was the first to step forward. The others followed closely behind him. Such a scene formed a rather distinct picture with the incomparably grand battle taking place on the treetop outside. When it was Qin Nan's turn, a voice was transmitted into his mind. "Master wants to help you, but I can't do anything about it. This is all I can do. I hope you won't let this traitor get away with it." Qin Nan's doubts were immediately resolved. He transmitted his voice. "Thanks Senior Celestial Tree for me. Thank you for what happened last time too." Qin Nan drew a lot and scanned the crowd. He was not required to take part in the first round. "Are there any other rules? Tell me all at once," Xiang Hun said coldly. "Patriarch Xiang, there are no other rules. You can use anything you want in a one-on-one duel," Li Yangfan said. Xiang Hun stopped looking at her. He landed on the dojo in the middle. "Patriarch Xiang, please enlighten me." Xiang Qi flew to the dojo and brought his fists together. Qin Nan glanced at Xiang Qi and observed him. He had been focusing on the indestructible force and the art of the immortal demon at the beginning. He did not pay much attention to the people on the supreme leaderboard. However, he did know a little about Xiangqi. He was ranked third on the supreme leaderboard, the young master of the Sherdao tribe. Qin Nan also noticed a strong murderous force in Xiangqi's body. It was obvious that he had refined the Sherdao flesh to a remarkable level. Xiangqi won't stand a chance against Xiang Hun with his cultivation, but he should be able to force Xiang Hun to use his true strength. Qin? Nan murmured. Enough talk, let's do it, Xiang Hun said coldly. Xiang? Qi wore a stern look. He immediately unleashed the full potential of his Sherdao flesh. His overwhelming murderous intent dyed the palace blood-red. Whoosh! Xiang? Xiangqi turned into a blood-red figure and merged his murderous aura into his body. It was like a demonic sword that had been sealed for countless years had reappeared and was going to destroy everything. Zheng? The eyes of Ho, Wang Tianfang, and the rest of the authorities glittered. It seemed like Xiangqi had been concealing his strength. The Sherdao tribe is indeed on the decline. Xiang Hun did not hide the disdain in his eyes. He moved forward to meet Xiangqi instead of retreating. Lightning? Xiangqi's attack landed on Xiang Hun in the nick of time. A shocking sight took place. Xiang? The murderous aura, power, and everything else shattered. Xiang Hun was not affected at all. Xiang? An extremely shocking sense of crisis rose in Qi's heart, and he did not hesitate to activate a secret method. Xiang? Xiang Hun clenched his fist and threw a punch at Xiangqi's chest at a shocking speed. Bang! Xiang? Xiangqi was knocked flying following a loud blast. He slammed into the barrier of the stage. The godly glow on his body shattered. The murderous aura fell to the bottom too. A stream of bright red blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. It was extremely eye-catching. He defeated him with a single move? Zheng? Ho, Wang Tianfang, and the rest of the authorities were startled. Most importantly, judging from Xiang Hun's reaction, he did not even use much strength. It was just a punch. Qin? Nan's eyes flickered too. However, Xiang Hun let out a hollow laugh and threw another punch at Xiangqi. Xiang? Xiang Hun's eyes widened. He immediately executed his trump card. A few talismans burst into flames, summoning magnificent figures with formidable auras. Ants like you dare to interfere? Xiang? Soul's domineering aura was like a rainbow as he punched out. After a few loud bangs, all of the imposing figures were shattered and turned into nothingness. Sherdao's progenitor. Xiang? Qi let out a roar. His blood boiled rapidly as wisps of formidable force gathered above him. Voices that sounded like the roars of ghosts immediately rang out from all directions of the divine palace. However, he saw Xiang Hun shattering the invisible force into pieces before he could fully unleash it. Xiang Hun kicked him in the chest. Chapter 2185. Jing Ho, Wang Tianfang, and the rest of the authorities took a deep breath. Xiangqi, who was ranked third on the supreme leaderboard, was defeated by 2 punches and a kick. What would they do if they were in Xiangqi's shoes? Would they survive another punch? Or would they be killed instantly? Their eyes widened all of a sudden. Xiang Hun walked towards Xiangqi, who was covered in blood and lying in the distance. Xiang Hun, you, Xiangqi blurted out when he sensed Xiang Hun's presence. What about me? Why didn't you surrender when you realized I'm your opponent? Are you trying to prove you have a backbone? Or do you think you can defeat me? Xiang Hun said coldly. He threw another kick at Xiangqi's chest. Unlike last time, Xiangqi's figure was not knocked flying by the tremendous force. Instead, countless runes spread across his body, emitting an eerie glow. Xiangqi, who had not uttered a single sound after suffering 2 punches and 1 kick from Xiang Hun, suddenly cried out in agony. His face turned extremely pale. On top of it, Qin Nan and the rest of the authorities clearly sensed that the slaying Tao force in Xiang Qi's body was shattered by a godly sword and returned to nothing. Xiang Hun had crippled Xiang Qi's Sherdao flesh. "You have to pay the price for trying to hurt me," Xiang Hun said calmly. He looked at Jing Ho, Wang Tianfang, and the rest of the authorities and said, "You aren't qualified to take part in the duels. Just surrender now. Otherwise I'll kill you. I'll cripple one of you." Jing Ho, Wang Tianfang, and the rest of the authorities wore displeased looks. Putting aside the fact that the match was related to the possessions of the two Supreme Highnesses, Xiang Hun was basically trampling on them with his words. Xiang Hun might be terrifying, and they might not stand a chance against him, but they were still the saints, patriarchs, and geniuses among the 9 heaven supremes of formidable factions. How could they not be proud of themselves? For example, why didn't Xiang Qi just surrender? Did Xiang Qi really think he could defeat the 6th immortal? Xiang Hun suddenly laughed and said, "Don't feel bad about it. Reality is cruel. In this era, you might be considered geniuses among supreme beings, but in our era, you were at most average. You didn't have the qualifications to begin with. Furthermore, what's the point of you getting involved? Why don't you wait for the competition to end? No matter who wins, you can gang up and attack them. That way you might have a chance." Zheng Ho's clenched fists trembled a few times before he finally loosened them. "Sect Master Xiang is right. I give up. I give up too." The saints and patriarch-level authorities lowered their eyes. "Are you sure you want to give up? If you are sure, then you won't have the chance to regret it." Li Yongfan asked calmly. "Yes." Zheng Ho and the others were silent for a moment before nodding in unison. "Loser, leave." Li Yongfan flicked her sleeve. Immediately, an invisible force rose up in the entire divine palace. Zheng Ho and the others were all sent out before they could resist. What was strange was that Xiang Qi, who had been defeated, was not forced out. Instead, he was moved to another ring. His entire body was covered by a green light, and his injuries were slowly recovering. "Qin Nan, come, it's just the two of us now." Xiang Hun stood on the ring and looked down at Qin Nan. There was also a trace of inexplicable excitement in the depths of his eyes. Qin Nan's gaze sharpened. He fully unleashed the 12 arts of Tao seeking in his body. His aura skyrocketed. Bang! Qin Nan made his move without wasting any time. It was as if he had merged with the heaven-shattering saber, turning into the only ray of light in the world as he slashed forward. "Qin Nan, your 12 arts of Tao seeking might be impressive, but that's all it is. They aren't even qualified to witness my true strength." Xiang Hun's eyes flickered disdainfully. Wisps of white light began to emit from his body, as if an ancient sacred being had returned to the world. He stood still on the spot and stretched his right hand forward, making a grabbing motion with his 5 fingers. Bang! The saber glow shattered into pieces and turned into light dot. Qin Nan did not seem surprised as he had expected it. He went to Xiang Hun's other side and slashed at him again. The surroundings immediately turned into a sea of fire, burning fiercely. First feint, then reality. 9 arts combination? O Qin Nan, the Tao arts, master arts, and rules I've witnessed are countless times more than yours. The battles I've been through are beyond your imagination. Not to mention, I also have the unbeatable flesh. What's the point of playing such a petty trick on me? Xiang Hun uttered thunderously. His aura had reached an unimaginable level. He did not attack. He only took a step forward. Bang! The entire divine palace trembled. Countless ripples spread out in all directions with him as the center, shattering the 9 arts combination into pieces. Li Yongfan's eyes flickered sternly for the first time. Xiang Hun's words were unpleasant to the ears, but she could not deny that he was telling the truth. Xiang Hun was like a bottomless abyss that could devour everything. "What do you think of my little trick then?" Qin Nan's figure was engulfed in a bloody aura as a completely different will merged with his heaven-shattering saber and the wills of the 12 Tao arts. A great ripple burst out of Qin Nan's body. The ripples that Xiang Hun triggered shattered when they were 3 zhang away from him, as if they had hit an invisible barrier. Whoosh! Xiang Hun slashed again. The entire palace was immersed in a great force. The power of the lineage of the Heaven Highness clans? Did you refine it with the ownerless heaven pattern? Xiang Hun was startled. He soon burst out laughing. Haha, I didn't think you would be able to find such a path with the ownerless heaven pattern. Unfortunately, your power is still too weak. It's not going to make any difference. Xiang Hun made his move. He threw a punch forward. A series of explosions took place in the palace. Qin Nan's strongest slash in the past was instantly bent, with countless cracks appearing on its surface, before it was crushed into pieces by the destructive force, turning into light dots filling the sky. Qin Nan, stop struggling. I know all the trump cards you have, and all the possible trump cards you might have. I've given you a chance, yet you didn't cherish it. You are going to die today. Xiang Hun unleashed a tremendous wave at Qin Nan. Li Yangfan frowned. Chapter 2186. At that instant, it was as if Qin Nan was wearing a set of demonic armor, causing his aura to skyrocket, causing everything in the world to tremble in fear. Isn't that? Xiang Hun's eyes widened in disbelief. Whoosh! Qin Nan's heaven-shattering saber rose from his hand. It gathered the saber intents of the 12 arts of Tao seeking and the power of the lineages of the 7 Heaven Highness clans into a brilliant saber glow. Demon shakes the 9 heavens. Qin Nan made his move. The 103 acupuncture points in his body began to vibrate vigorously as if ancient demons had been awakened. They unleashed a boundless demonic force into Qin Nan's arm. It turned into a punch in the end. Eternity immovable, the sacred kingdom of the heavens. Xiang Hun collected his thoughts. Wisps of sacred light burst out of his body and formed an ancient kingdom. It remained still no matter how the world and era changed. It was Xiang Hun's first attack. Bang! The entire palace began to tremble vigorously as countless intents and gusts of wind swept in all directions like a calamity from the heavens. Cracks began to appear on the ground and the walls. Li Yangfan's expression changed slightly. She formed a seal with her jade-like hand. Immediately, a vast force was poured into the divine palace, which prevented it from breaking. Zhou Di, I didn't expect you to reincarnate in such a short time. You even set Huang Fuju up and obtained the art of the immortal demon in advance. Xiang Hun exclaimed. Now, he finally understood why he didn't do it even though he had countless opportunities to rebel and seize the throne under Zhou Di's command. It was because Zhou Di had shone brightly in the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Qin Nan was only the reincarnation of Zhou Di. He was not the real Zhou Di. Qin Nan was no match for Zhou Di. Qin Nan, it's true that you've exceeded my expectations, but so what? You've only cultivated the art of the immortal superior demon to the level of 100 acupoints demon. You haven't even evolved the superior demon law. Xiang Hun quickly calmed his emotions. Purple lightning surged out of his body and spread across every inch of the palace. Lightning of heavenly punishment, exorcise demons and destroy evil. You're different too. You haven't truly attained the eternal indestructible body? Qin Nan let out a hollow laugh as the divine battle spirit floated behind him. His eyes were engulfed in demonic flames as he executed one Tao art after another. I am indeed not successful. However, I am only one step away. Furthermore, how could the art of the immortal demon compare to the body of eternity? You can't even hurt me. Xiang Hun seemed to be infuriated. Sacred runes surfaced on his body, granting him a mystical aura. He simply ignored the sacred kingdom behind him and threw punches and punches. He was like an ancient cultivator who only knew how to execute the simplest moves. However, the power he was unleashing was simply too terrifying. Any of the Tao arts that Qin Nan executed would shatter into pieces upon being hit by him. It was as if an undefeatable general was pushing forward with an unstoppable momentum. Fight! Qin Nan let out a roar. His battle blood boiled as he grew fiercer. Bang bang bang! It felt like the only thing left between the heavens and earth was the sound of explosions. The impact of the collisions was simply too terrifying. Li Yangfan had no choice but to expand her palace rapidly to absorb more of the celestial tree's energy. It was not a big deal to Li Yangfan, but her heart sank after witnessing the collisions. Xiang Hun's half-inextinguishable body of eternity was almost unbeatable. He did not have any weaknesses. No matter how Qin Nan tried to set up a trap, be it a feint or a diversion, Li Yangfan was still surprised by it, yet Xiang Hun still managed to nullify it with brute force. Xiang Hun continued to push forward. He did not dodge or block any of the attacks. He simply allowed Qin Nan to land his attacks on him. Apart from the holes on his immortal robe that was comparable to a Tao-seeking weapon, there was not a single mark left on him, let alone a wound. In comparison, Qin Nan was already covered in wounds. Blood was flowing out from his wounds. He barely managed to nullify Xiang Hun's attacks a few times and almost suffered serious injuries. It was no longer a battle. It was a one-sided battle. It felt like a Heaven Highness was facing the strongest master of the heavens and earth. At that instant, a sharp pain, a sense of helplessness, and a sense of exhaustion struck Qin Nan's mind continuously, as if they were trying to devour his mind and soul. Qin Nan ignored it. He only had one thought in his mind. How was he going to break through the defense? An ancient voice entered Li Yangfan's mind. It said, "Yangfan, take Qin Nan away later. Where there's life, there's hope. You might have a chance in the future." Li Yangfan pursed her lips. The ancient voice spoke again, "Don't be dissatisfied. Xiang Hun was right. Your era is incomparable to his era. Even though Qin Nan is the reincarnation of two Supreme Highnesses, he's still Qin Nan for now. Do you understand what I'm saying?" Li Yangfan's eyes flickered. She lowered her gaze and said, "I do." After she finished speaking, she formed a hand seal with her hand. Her face was expressionless, neither sad nor happy. Tao pattern suppress. Qin Nan's hair and robe drifted wildly. A mystical pattern soared into the sky from his body. It contained the will of 12 arts of Tao seeking. It crushed down like an entire world. Xiang Hun's body sank as the pressure increased tremendously. Slash! The 103 apertures in Qin Nan's body unleashed their full potential. The illusionary figure of an ancient demon appeared deep inside his mind. It had transcended time and space to strengthen him. At this moment, man, saber, soul, and intent merged into one, transforming into an extremely sharp light that was difficult to describe with words. Boundless sacred fist. Xiang Hun threw a punch forward. Bang! Chapter 2187. Qin Nan, did you see that? That's the difference between us. Xiang Hun's aura shattered the rift and suppressed the place. His overwhelming force knocked the sharp ray back inch by inch. His spine was like a pillar of the heavens and earth, supporting the Tao pattern and producing a series of explosions. A series of explosions took place inside Qin Nan's body. His bones began to shatter one after another. The wounds all over his body began to increase at an alarming rate. Blood flowed into his eyes and dyed his entire body red. The force was too overwhelming. It was like a mountain or a sky, and he was only a mere ant. How could a mere ant possibly move a mountain? However, Qin Nan did not accept the fact that he was just a mere ant. For some reason, he was holding a deep breath in his chest. There was a force accumulating in his soul. He was unwilling to admit defeat. He did not want to lose to Xiang Hun just like that. Whoosh! Li Yangfan formed the seal completely. A majestic aura filled the entire divine palace, and the dark green light shone upon everything. I knew it. What do you mean by following fate? What duel? It's just the celestial tree trying to help Qin Nan. Today, I will kill your successor here. Xiang Hun was well prepared. He immediately unleashed a murderous aura. Xiang Hun's eyes widened as he sensed something in the nick of time. In his vision, Qin Nan's demonic eyes became even more eerie, as the crimson glow grew brighter, until it was as bright as the ocean. Break it! The 3 words were like a thunderclap. The primordial qi of the immortal demon in Qin Nan's body was stirred up by Qin Nan's will. It surged into the purple pieces in his divine sense. It was as if an ancient will had been awakened from a deep slumber, causing the power inside the 103 acupuncture points in his body to skyrocket, resulting in a tremendous demonic intent. Bang! It felt like there was a gate in the rift. A chain was broken. The demonic intent bursting out of Qin Nan's body underwent a tremendous change. It turned into an obscure, shocking ripple. He has refined the rules of demon? Xiang Hun was startled. Before he could react, the ultimate ray that was about to be destroyed by him suddenly rose to a whole new level. Li Yangfan came to a stop. Bang! A terrifying ripple surged in all directions. Xiang Hun and Qin Nan were knocked back. They only came to a stop when they reached the walls of the palace. Qin Nan was still covered in blood, but his aura was completely different than before. It had an indescribable imperiousness that made people subconsciously want to submit to him. Xiang Hun was still surrounded by holy light. He didn't seem to be affected at all, but Li Yangfan could clearly see a wound on his fist. Golden blood dripped down from the wound and fell to the ground like a flower. He broke the flesh of eternity? Li Yangfan's eyes widened. Qin Nan, you've really surprised me. I didn't expect you to refine the rules of demon at the last moment, Xiang Hun said. His expression was the same as before. It was filled with disdain, as if everything was under his control. However, he was the only one who could sense that there was a nameless anger in his heart. He had half the flesh of eternity. How could a mere ant like Qin Nan possibly hurt him? However, it's only enough to make me bleed a drop of blood. It's time to end it, Xiang Hun said coldly. He vanished into thin air and reappeared above Qin Nan. Destruction of the 9 heavens. A tremendous rare phenomenon suddenly took place behind Xiang Hun. The illusionary figures of the 33 small immortal realms appeared. They kept shattering, reassembling, and shattering at an unbelievable pace. Qin Nan sensed a shocking pressure. The will of the 12 arts of Tao seeking and the rules of demon burst out from his left and right. 13 ultimate tears of 10,000 gods. Xiang Hun seemed to have turned into the embodiment of the great Tao. Every word he uttered was followed by countless secret arts. The scenery in all directions began to change drastically. 13 sword intents came from the primordial times and slashed everything in their path. The strongest existences in the heavens and earth also lost their pride and backbone. Xiang Hun was not someone who only relied on half the flesh of eternity. He was the 6th immortal, second only to Xiang Zun. He was known as the Immortal and was responsible for a great secret. He was from the era of the 4 Supreme Highnesses. He was once one of Zhoudi's trusted subordinates. He had practiced countless Tao arts, master arts, and even peeked into the rules of Tao. His talents were one of the strongest existences in the heavens and earth. If he combined all of these with his half-step eternal indestructible body, not to mention those at the same level as him, even those at a higher level than him would not be a match for him. Bang bang bang! The Tao intents of the 12 arts of Tao seeking and the rules of the immortal demon were no match for the storm that Xiang Hun was unleashing. They dimmed and lost their brilliance. The divine battle spirit on Qin Nan's back and the heaven-shattering saber in his hand shook vigorously. Qin Nan did not want to see them being defeated. He had no choice but to withdraw them. Qin Nan's mind was in a mess. Xiang Hun was simply too unbeatable. Even the word powerless could not describe the feeling he had when facing Xiang Hun. Crap! Li Yangfan was startled. She had no choice but to make her move. It's not your turn yet, Xiang Hun said coldly. The words poured down on Li Yangfan like the wrath of the great Tao. Her figure stiffened as she sensed great terror. Qin Nan, the difference between you and Zhou Di isn't small at all. As his reincarnation, you are nothing but a disgrace to him. Xiang Hun looked down at Qin Nan disdainfully. If that's the case, as Zhou Di's trusted subordinate, I will avenge him. You will drop to your knees before you die. Chapter 2188. Bang bang bang. In just less than 10 breaths, the will of Qin Nan's 12 arts of Tao seeking and the rules of the immortal demon were shattered into pieces. His face turned deathly pale. The power that seemed to be able to destroy the heavens and earth mercilessly crushed his body, attacking his mind and even his soul. No, I can't kneel, I won't kneel, I won't. Qin Nan only had one last thought in his mind. He could die, he could accept everything, but he would never kneel in front of Xiang Hun. However, everything was cruel. No matter how he struggled, the boundless force was devouring him like a ferocious beast. It was trying to erase his will. There was no way he could stop it. Qin Nan, stop struggling. You are just an ant. No matter what you do, no matter how much you sacrifice, you will always be an ant. As an ant, you should have the resolve of an ant. Xiang Hun was like the ruler of the heavens and earth. His words shook the 9 heavens. The 13 rare phenomena behind him unleashed a greater force. He was trying to crush Qin Nan's mind. Everything seemed to have turned into a boundless ocean of darkness that was surging at Qin Nan. No. Qin Nan let out a roar that echoed throughout the place. He was indeed an ant in Xiang Hun's eyes. His talents and everything else were incomparable to Zhou Di and Huang Fuju. However, even an ant had the attitude of an ant. His unyieldingness and pride had been carved into the depths of his soul. No matter how strong the other party was, no matter who the other party was, he would not allow them to trample on him wantonly. Bang! At that instant an ancient will burst out from deep within Qin Nan's body. It unleashed a terrifying ancient aura, causing the entire palace to tremble vigorously. Zhou Di's will? Xiang Hun's expression froze. He had no idea that apart from awakening Zhou Di's memories, Qin Nan had also refined Zhou Di's remaining blood. As such, he still had Zhou Di's remaining will and aura deep inside his body. He had fully unleashed it now. Son of AB******, how dare you! At that instant 2 furious roars could be heard. Zhou Xuandao's illusionary figure and the ownerless heaven pattern deep inside Qin Nan's divine sense appeared. Ha ha ha, you're finally willing to show yourself. I thought you weren't willing to acknowledge Qin Nan as your master and help Qin Nan. Xiang Hun collected his thoughts. He burst out laughing instead of showing any fear. However, you are both idiots. What's the use of Zhou Di's remaining will and the wills of the 2 of you showing up together? Do you think you can stop me? He can't even use the undying cycle mountain and the ownerless heaven pattern. That's fine too, it saves me the trouble of finding your true forms after killing Qin Nan. You will submit to me from today onward. Xiang Hun withdrew his smile. He waved his hand and unleashed sacred light in all directions. Some turned into mountains, some turned into ancient sword. There were thousands of them, but they were all different from one another. It was a Tao art that he had executed by using the indestructible force. Don't even think about it. Zhou Xuandao's eyes flickered coldly as he unleashed a magnificent power. The ownerless heaven pattern uttered a cry and unleashed a shocking ripple. It surged upward like a great tide. Bang bang bang! In just an instant, Zhou Xuandao and the ownerless heaven pattern were in a disadvantageous position. First of all, the Tao arts executed with the indestructible force of eternity were utterly terrifying. Second of all, as Xiang Hun had mentioned, Qin Nan was unable to control them. Their will and power alone were nowhere enough. However, they did not back off either. You two should drop to your knees too. Xiang Hun took a step forward and threw a punch at Zhou Xuandao as if he had gathered the power of the heavens. Cracks began to appear on Zhou Xuandao's body. The ownerless heaven pattern shook vigorously and was on the verge of collapsing. They could not hold on any longer. In the nick of time, Qin Nan's bloodied figure shuddered as a new force burst out from deep within his body. His consciousness, which was completely submerged by the boundless darkness, burst out with a shocking wave of energy. It was incomparably stubborn and unyielding as it charged forward, opening up a space that belonged to him bit by bit. Buzz! Invisible shackles appeared one after another before they were finally broken. Qin Nan's flesh, will, and soul had reached a whole new level. A stronger aura soared into the sky. Keep breaking! Qin Nan let out a roar in his heart. He began to fight back like a giant whose backbone was crushed by the heavens. The nirvana of the phoenix. Achieving the master of Tao? Xiang Hun's eyes flickered with astonishment. He did not expect a mere ant like Qin Nan to forcibly refine the rules of the immortal demon and achieve another breakthrough after facing his overwhelming power. You've indeed surprised me. However, don't you understand what's going on? Even if you've achieved the Master of Tao, you still won't stand a chance against me. Besides, do you think you have a chance to achieve the Master of Tao in front of me? Xiang Hun's eyes were filled with disdain. Meanwhile, the force that burst out of his fist continued to rise to an unimaginable level. It was the final blow. However, little did Xiang Hun know, apart from the shocking changes that were taking place inside Qin Nan's body, a chaotic demonic glow had traveled across the boundless space and entered Qin Nan's divine sense. That broken purple crystal immediately blossomed with a dazzling brilliance. Mo Xie once mentioned that Qin Nan would surely awaken Huang Fu Ju's memories after achieving the Master of Tao. Judging from the situation, Qin Nan would only be able to fully awaken the memories after he achieved the Master Realm. However, the chaotic demonic glow seemed to be influenced by Qin Nan's will. It suddenly grew 100 times stronger and faster. When Xiang Hun's magnificent force knocked Zhou Xuandao and the ownerless heaven pattern flying, the purple crystal was completed too. It felt like time had frozen at that instant. Xiang Hun and Li Yangfan's eyes widened as they sensed something. Bang! Chapter 2189. The cultivators on the top of the celestial tree fixed their eyes on the palace. Their faces were filled with fear. They could sense two terrifying auras coming from the palace. In particular, the pressure of the demonic Tao made them feel like they were nothing more than a speck of dust, and their bodies were like ants. However, little did they know, the palace with the celestial tree sealing off the indestructible force and the art of the immortal demon had nullified most of the auras. The Tao arts and the will of the masters of Tao in the palace were completely suppressed. It felt like the place had turned into a demonic realm. Li Yangfan was the successor of the celestial tree, yet the green light she was emitting was almost gone. Xiang Hun fared better than her. The sacred light had provided him with a space of a few hundred zhang. However, the difference between them was like the difference between the heavens and earth. Xiang Hun's face was filled with astonishment. As the sixth immortal, how could he not know what was going on? How could he not know about the illusionary figure behind Qin Nan? But, what was going on? Qin Nan was supposed to be Zhou Di's reincarnation. How did he become Huang Fuju's reincarnation? At that instant, an ancient voice echoed in Li Yangfan's mind. Who would have thought that Qin Nan would awaken Huang Fuju's memory at this moment? Hurry up and help him achieve the Master Realm. He might still have a chance. Li Yangfan was startled. She quickly collected her thoughts and performed a hand seal. It was as if a huge gap had appeared above the palace. Streams of green, pure energy surged into Qin Nan's body like a vast ocean. The wounds and the broken bones on his body began to recover at a shocking pace. Qin Nan's aura, which had dropped to rock bottom, began to rise rapidly, reaching its peak in the blink of an eye. Xiang Hun. Qin Nan's eyes sprang open. The whole world shook. Even if I am an ant, I will still defeat you today. Qin Nan fully executed the 12 arts of Tao seeking in his body. Tao Intense soared into the sky as the divine battle spirit floated behind him. He held the heaven-shattering saber in his hand. The illusionary demonic figure that was summoned by Huang Fuju's memories floated behind him. A tremendous demonic intent burst out from it, as if it had transformed into an unprecedented world, causing everything in the heavens to submit to it. Zhou Di's remnant will was like an ancient holy dragon that coiled around Qin Nan's body. Boom! Qin Nan made his move. He arrived above Xiang Hun and slashed his saber. This was because he was in the process of becoming a master. His cultivation base was a lot stronger than before, but it had not reached an extremely terrifying level. However, with the support of the will of 2 Supreme Highnesses, the slash was no longer ordinary. It had completely surpassed Qin Nan's current strength. Xiang Hun sensed danger for the first time. It wasn't very strong, but he subconsciously unleashed the half-step indestructible flesh of eternity and threw a punch forward. Tao Art, the boundless sacred kingdom. Following a huge blast, Xiang Hun was knocked a few steps back. There was a cut on the tip of his fist. Blood poured out from it and fell to the ground like a blossoming flower. Qin Nan had only managed to make Xiang Hun bleed a single drop of blood after exhausting all his energy. It was a huge difference. Qin Nan, I didn't expect it. I never thought Zhou Di and Huang Fuju would bet on your body and your reincarnation to have such a great duel. Xiang Hun exclaimed as he collected his thoughts. Moreover, this matchless battle was so secretive that he didn't even notice it at all. By Zhongxing, the divine god of battle, and the others were most likely kept in the dark. Tao Jolting Saber Art. Qin Nan ignored Xiang Hun. His aura had skyrocketed during the duel. He slashed forward again. Unlike before, as the slash landed, 9 different rare phenomena appeared in the surroundings. Not only did he break through to the 9 heavens supreme realm, his martial skills had also surpassed his limit. He was able to execute the combination of 10 arts. Eternal sacred, immovable eternity. Xiang Hun stomped the ground. Sacred runes spread in all directions with him at the center. They expanded the space around him under the terrifying demonic intent. Bang bang bang! The 2 attacks clashed, resulting in chaos. It was as if Xiang Hun had turned into a vast piece of land. He remained unmoved despite the overwhelming power. Qin Nan, I admit that your strength has reached a shocking level. You can hurt me, and I won't be able to suppress you any longer, but… Xiang Hun switched the topic. So what? Didn't you rely on Zhou Di and Huang Fuju's will to achieve your current level? You still haven't changed. You're still an ant. I'm the 6th immortal. Why can't I crush an ant like you to death? He performed a hand seal after finishing the sentence. A ripple appeared not far away from him as a figure slowly appeared from it. There was no way Qin Nan would be affected by the words. He shifted his movement and was about to execute the undefeatable killing art again. However, as his saber was about to land, and he took a closer look at the figure, his figure stiffened. The figure was none other than Qiu Hong. Li Yangfan sharply noticed that something was not right. Haha, Qin Nan, keep going. Why did you stop? Xiang Hun burst out laughing. He was overjoyed. Even he himself did not expect that the chess piece he had casually placed would be of such great use at such a critical moment. Xiang Hun, this is between us. It has nothing to do with him. Qin Nan glared at Xiang Hun. It has nothing to do with him? Qin Nan, you're too naive, too ignorant. Xiang Hun said mockingly. Everything is allowed in this duel. So, let's cut the crap. Either you give me Huang Fuju's memory, or watch him die on his own. As the sixth immortal, he was extremely observant. He immediately noticed that Qin Nan had triggered Huang Fuju's illusionary figure as soon as he achieved the Master Realm. He must be in the process of awakening his memory. Chapter 2190. Qiuhong was the first brother he had befriended since he came to the Nine Heavens immortal realm. He and Qiuhong were destined to be together. Qiuhong was supposed to be dead, but Qin Nan happened to enter Qiuhong's body when his soul entered the Nine Heavens. Qiuhong was able to reconstruct his flesh and come back to life. Qiuhong was extremely grateful toward Qin Nan. He treated Qin Nan as his big brother. In Qin Nan's heart, the Eight Brilliance Demon Emperor, Xiao Shunliang Yuanji, and the others whom he befriended were incomparable to Qiuhong. Qiuhong was like Tang Qinshan and Gong Yang to him. What should he do now? If he did not resist and allowed Xiang Hun to take away Huang Fuju's memories, the consequences would be unimaginable. If he did not give them to Xiang Hun, Qiuhong would die again. Qin Nan, don't hesitate. If you think highly of him, he will understand you. He won't want you to let Xiang Hun take away Huang Fuju's memories for him. Besides, even if you save him, Xiang Hun will kill him too. Even if you manage to survive, he will definitely suffer a fate worse than death. He will blame himself. Seeing this, Li Yangfan quickly transmitted her voice to him. Qin Nan, what's wrong? Why are you hesitating? Aren't you very loyal and righteous? Aren't you willing to give up everything for your brothers? Xiang Hun waved his hand with a mocking grin and said, Forget it, I'm not a demon. I don't have the heart to threaten you with someone precious to you. So, Xiang Hun said coldly, Qiuhong, choke yourself to death. Qiuhong's eyes were pitch black. He said, Acknowledged. After saying that, Qiuhong stretched out his hand and pinched his own neck. Using all his strength, his face instantly turned red. The fear of death made him struggle instinctively. However, Xiang Hun's method was like an iron law. It bound his hands and forced him to exert more and more strength. Thud! The sight struck Qin Nan's heart like a heavy hammer. Li Yangfan held her breath for a brief moment. Xiang Hun, stop! Qin Nan shouted harshly. Xiang Hun smiled upon seeing this. What an ant! This was an ant. He was willing to hand over the memories of Huang Fuju, a supreme highness, for someone who was not even a Nine Heavens Supreme, under such circumstances. Are you still not going to make a move? What's the point of watching this? Zhou Xuandao, who was on the verge of collapse, suddenly sent a telepathic message to Qin Nan's soul. The 9-dragon stone seal trembled slightly, and a brilliant light appeared, indicating that it would remember the matter of you yelling at me. At the same time, a mystical glow sprang forward and entered Qiuhong's body at an unbelievable pace. The puppet's condition wasn't very good, so it could only do so much. Xiang Hun's smile stiffened. He suddenly realized half of the seal he had planted on Qiuhong had shattered. Specks of divine light immediately appeared in Qiuhong's pitch-black eyes. What's going on? He subconsciously loosened his grip. Looking at the situation in front of him and sensing the terrifying auras, he couldn't help but reveal a blank expression. Brother Nan. He finally calmed his thoughts and was overjoyed when he saw Qin Nan. Qiuhong Yu. Qin Nan was startled too. Xiantian pardon art, soul-binding curse. Xiang Hun did not have time to think. He immediately performed a hand seal and yelled. Chiu Hong groaned. His face twisted in pain, yet he could not resist the power. He could only watch it being invaded. It was also at this time that countless memories surged into his mind. He was turned into Xiang Hun's puppet in the 6 Unity Forbidden Land. He then showed up at the Heaven-Slaying sect. He then went to help Brother Qin Nan in the 72 sacred areas of the heavens and earth. Xiang Hun even summoned him today. Brother Nan, don't give him the memories! Chiu Hong yelled. Cut the crap! Xiang Hun was enraged. Xiang Hun, don't you dare use me! When Chiu Hong realized that his will was about to be completely devoured by that terrifying power, he clenched his teeth and made a resolute decision. Bang! Chiu Hong's figure shuddered vigorously. All of the life force had dissipated, leaving not a single trace. He would rather die than become Xiang Hun's pawn or Brother Nan's burden. He had decided to end his own life. Qin Nan's eyes widened. His body began to tremble. Damn it! Xiang Hun's expression darkened. He could not help but curse. He did not expect Chiu Hong to go against his seal at such a crucial moment. What should I do now? I won't be able to kill Qin Nan if the battle continues. I can't let him achieve the Master Realm either. Right, Zhuang Nan, I'll ask him to. Several thoughts crossed Xiang Hun's mind. However, before he could send a voice transmission to Zhuang Nan, he suddenly felt that his surroundings seemed to have turned into a peerless ice domain, causing a chill to explode in his heart. Destruction of the 9 heavens. Xiang Hun immediately executed a combination of Tao art. 13 ancient rare phenomena took place between the heavens and earth. Kill. A strong murderous aura soared into the clouds like a peerless sword. Chiu Hong's death served as a great blow to Qin Nan. Qin Nan unleashed terrifying saber intents to tear the 13 rare phenomena apart. Xiang Hun received a series of heavy blows. He was knocked back continuously. He seemed to be in a miserable state. However, Li Yangfan's heart skipped a beat. She could clearly see that every time a wound appeared on Xiang Hun's body, it would heal in an instant. Half of the indestructible flesh of eternity possessed the will of eternity. Qin Nan might have the upper hand against Xiang Hun, but there was no way he could kill Xiang Hun. The situation had already been reversed to this point, but in the end, was it still not enough? Hee, Qin Nan, is the death of an ant really worth your anger? Isn't it fine now? You've saved Huang Fuju's memory, right? Xiang Hun said while transmitting his voice. However, his expression darkened after a few moments. He could not help but curse in his heart. If he did not capture Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan, he would not be able to threaten Qin Nan and force Qin Nan to hand over Huang Fuju's memory. Judging from the situation, Qin Nan could not kill him, and he had no chance of defeating Qin Nan. Qin Nan would eventually achieve the Master Realm and leave the Tao-seeking land. Even though the indestructible force of eternity and the art of the immortal demon would still belong to him, he was still displeased that he could not get his hands on such a great opportunity. Fine, I'll just take these 2 things for now. I'll refine you and take away your memory after I've mastered the indestructible flesh of eternity. Xiang Hun clenched his teeth. He lifted his gaze and prepared himself for the final battle against Qin Nan. Chapter 2191. The celestial tree's ancient voice echoed in Li Yangfan's mind. Sigh, even though it's only half the indestructible flesh of eternity, it's still unshakable. Qin Nan has done a great job. You should help him level up later. He has awakened Huang Fuju's memories. He might have a chance to reclaim them in the future. That being said, the heaven-reaching Tao tree did not have the slightest bit of hope. It had come from that era, so it knew how terrifying the true indestructible flesh of eternity was. Li Yangfan wore a dim expression. As a matter of fact, in her heart, she did not care what would happen to Qin Nan. She only admired Qin Nan a little. However, Xiang Hun's actions had completely trampled everyone in their era under his feet. It was true that their era had declined. It was not as glorious as the era of the four Supreme Highnesses. However, there were still many geniuses in their era who were working hard to alter their destinies and achieve greater height. No matter how strong they were, no matter what their achievements were, they had never stopped. It was worthy of respect. Therefore, she did not want Qin Nan to lose. She wanted Qin Nan to defeat Xiang Hun so Xiang Hun would understand that their era had its own merit. But now all of this was She subconsciously lifted her gaze when she sensed something. Her heart skipped a beat. She saw Qin Nan rising into the air. The will of the 12 arts of Tao seeking grabbed the remaining will of Zhou Di and the illusionary figure of Huang Fuju behind him like two giant hands. Merge. Qin Nan unleashed his will. Bang bang bang. Countless earth-shattering explosions resounded throughout the entire divine palace. Because of the battle between the two of them, all kinds of wills were destroyed into nothingness. A formless wave of terror swept out. Even Li Yongfan and Xiang Hun felt minuscule at that instant. Qin Nan, even the mountain spirit of the undying cycle mountain, Zhou Xuandao, was astounded. He initially wanted to use the 9 Dragons seal to help Qin Nan, so Qin Nan would have a chance to turn the tables around. He did not expect Qin Nan to do something so crazy. Those were the wills of 2 Supreme Highnesses. Even though the wills of the 2 Supreme Highnesses were only remnants and awakened memories respectively, they were not the true wills of the Supreme Highnesses. Either way, they were still Supreme Highnesses. What was a Supreme Highness? It was the end of the martial path in this world. Since the birth of this boundless world until now, there had only been a total of 4. Every single one of them possessed unprecedented natural talent, and they possessed great courage, great willpower, and great karmic luck. They'd experienced countless battles and overcome innumerable calamities. Even though they had been reincarnated for a few tens of thousands of years, their wills up still had not merged with each other. At that instant, the demonic realm covering a distance of a few 100,000 li on the top of the tree outside the palace turned into chaos. Within the primordial chaos, a torrential holy light and an ancient demonic light clashed against each other. It was as if 2 peerless giants were engaged in a life-and-death battle. The terrifying aura that surged out was filled with a sense of destruction. Countless cultivators were terrified as if they were facing a great calamity. Some 9 heavens supremes in the greater success stage instinctively fled in all directions, resulting in great chaos. Bang bang bang. It felt like the end of the world had arrived in the palace. Everything was on the verge of collapsing. It was as if Qin Nan had no idea how crazy his action was. He used all his might to collide with the 2 terrifying wills and forcibly merge them. Because of this, he began to pay an enormous price. The bones in his body began to explode one after another. At the same time, countless wounds appeared on his body, causing blood to splatter everywhere. His aura that was rising due to his breakthrough to the Master Realm dropped significantly after receiving such a huge blow. Ha ha ha! Xiang Hun burst out laughing as he collected his thoughts. He was in a great mood. A glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. This was what they meant by a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. He initially thought he had no chance of obtaining Huang Fuju's memories in Qin Nan's divine sense, yet he did not expect Qin Nan to do something so crazy and stupid. As such, there was no need for him to do anything. Qin Nan would simply be digging his own grave. Qin Nan, I must apologize to you. I've underestimated you. You're not an ant. Your courage and imperiousness have greatly exceeded my imagination. Even Zhou Di and Huang Fuju are no match for you. Xiang Hun complimented. Qin Nan, stop it at once. Zhou Xuandao yelled as he collected his thoughts. Yang Fan, stop him at once. Celestial Tree transmitted her voice in a panic. However, the situation changed once again as soon as Li Yongfan collected her thought. Zhoudi's remaining will and Huang Fuju's will seemed to have their own consciousness. They knew what was going to happen next. They immediately went all out and fought one another. Qin Nan, who was stuck in the middle, suffered the most damage. On top of his body, the Tao-melting immortal flames, his divine sense, and his soul felt like they were being slashed by countless sharp swords. An unprecedented pain struck Qin Nan's will. In his heart, he had a feeling that everything was about to explode, that everything was about to be destroyed in a single moment. Heavenly cycle seal. Zhou Xuandao did not have time to think. He immediately unleashed a brilliant glow. Haha, don't waste your time. No one can save him unless a Supreme Highness is here. No one can stop Zhou Di and Huang Fuju's will. Xiang Hun burst out laughing. Is it over? Li Yongfan stared at the scene with a blank face. She could sense that it was impossible to determine the outcome of the battle between the wills of the two peerless emperors. Everything was going to turn into nothing. Fuse. In the nick of time, Qin Nan's roar echoed in the heavens and earth. He could feel that he was like a speck of dust, an ant or a tiny boat in the middle of a storm. He was minuscule. However, he was not willing to give up. He was trying to merge the two wills with force. Chapter 2192. At that instant, it felt like Qin Nan's body was being unlocked one after another, as an unimaginable force burst out from his body. The will of the 12 arts of Tao seeking that he had unleashed was 1,000 times stronger than before. It had reached an unbelievable level. It forcibly suppressed the will of Zhou Di and Huang Fuju that were fighting one another. It did not matter how hard they tried to resist. They were still being forcibly merged with one another. Even though it was only a tiny bit, it was like a ray of light that pierced through the darkness that had loomed over the world for countless years. It brought a new hope to the world. Qin Nan, in particular, felt like the power that burst out of his body had grown stronger after the ray of hope was activated. This, Celestial Tree and Zhou Xuandao were thunderstruck. The two ancient authorities who had existed for a long time had a great impact on their worldview for the first time since the era of the 4 Supreme Highnesses ended. Impossible, this is impossible. The smile on Xiang Hun's face stiffened. He let out a roar. They were the will of Huang Fuju and Zhou Di. Qin Nan was only an ant that had just achieved the Master Realm. How could the power of an ant shake two supreme heavenly venerables? Bang bang bang. This was the first time something like this had ever happened since ancient times. The wills of the two Supreme Highnesses gradually weakened under the pressure. They were slowly being forced to merge with one another. A moment later, the two wills had completely merged with one another. The moment they completely fused together, an indescribably terrifying fluctuation erupted. It was like a peerless storm that was rarely seen since ancient times, causing the entire divine palace to be covered in countless cracks. It was on the verge of shattering. In addition to that, a series of chimes of ancient bells echoed in the air. The heavens and earth shook, the great Tao moved, and the rules shook. He did it? Celestial Tree and Zhou Xuandao were dumbfounded. They could not believe what they were witnessing. The impact that this scene brought to them was simply too great. Impossible, impossible, this isn't possible, Xiang Hun continued to yell. However, his voice gradually weakened. His face turned pale for the first time. His eyes that were full of confidence were now filled with fear for the first time. It was his first time showing such an expression since the era of the 4 Supreme Highnesses had come to an end. I admit defeat, these two things are yours. However, his reaction was extremely fast. All of his plans and thoughts were thrown to the back of his mind. Without any hesitation, he turned into a brilliant white light and broke through the door of the palace in one fell swoop, rushing forward at an extremely fast speed. That's Xiang Hun. The cultivators on the tree were astounded, confused, and terrified. Zheng Ho, Wang Tianfang, Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, and the others immediately recognized him. Patriarch Xiang Hun. Suppressed in the distance, Zhuang Nan, who was on the verge of death and heavily injured, felt his spirits lift and joy appear on his face. In his mind, Xiang Hun must have killed Qin Nan and taken everything. Now, Xiang Hun would be the one to deal with the two detestable women. However, as soon as the thought crossed his mind, he noticed something strange about Xiang Hun's expression before he could transmit his voice. Bang! A deafening blast took place. The enormous, extraordinary palace with a magnificent aura exploded, turning into countless light dots flying in all directions. A figure flew out from it. His body was emitting an ancient sacred glow, an ancient demonic glow, and 12 different intents of Tao seeking, like 12 ancient deities. The pressure from his body had reached an indescribably frightening level, causing the entire incomparably huge treetop to tremble. Qin Nan? Countless cultivators looked up at this figure with their eyes wide open, completely lost in thought. Was he still the same Qin Nan? Xiang Hun. Qin Nan spoke. The two words were like the voice of the great Tao, shattering the rift into pieces and turning it into chaos. Various shocking rare phenomena took place between the heavens and earth. Xiang Hun stiffened as if he had been struck by lightning. Immediately after, a sense of crisis that had never appeared in his heart since the end of that era exploded in his heart. The boundless sacred kingdom, eternally suppressing the ancients, indestructible and undying. 13 heavens runes, cries of 10,000 blood. Xiang Hun let out a roar as he unleashed the full power of the half-destructible flesh of eternity. All sorts of powerful wills of master arts and ancient Tao techniques were combined together. All the celestial venerate supreme treasures he had collected over the past tens of thousands of years flew out of his body. Countless rays of light soared into the sky from where Xiang Hun was standing. Their auras surged in all directions like a storm. Qin Nan crossed a great distance with a single step and arrived above Xiang Hun like an invincible great saint. He forcibly merged the will of the two supreme highnesses, the will of the 12 arts of Tao seeking, and his own will into a saber intent that slashed at Qin Nan. Bang! The heavens and earth lost all light at that instant. Only the great Tao and the rules of cultivation were shaking vigorously. The terrifying power crushed the wills of the various Taoist magics, and the combined Taoist magic. The celestial highness realm precious treasures let out miserable shrieks, dimmed, and flew off into the distance. I'm the 6th immortal, I have the indestructible flesh of eternity. You're just an ant. How could you possibly kill me? How could you possibly kill me? Xiang Hun yelled as he burned his lifespan and soul to unleash sacred light. However, he couldn't stop it anymore. He could only watch as the everlasting indestructible power that he had bitterly searched for, exhausted all methods, and spared no expense to obtain was finally torn apart. This saber intent landed squarely on his body. Xiang Hun let out a cry of agony as he began to tremble. Whoosh! Chapter 2193. Strong gusts of wind surged across the trees. After a while, everything in the world returned to normal. The 9 heavens supremes soon witnessed an unforgettable sight. Did he lose? The 6th immortal was slain by Qin Nan's saber? Great! The celestial tree, Zhou Xuandao, and Li Yangfan were overjoyed. Haha, Qin Nan, you didn't let me down. Supreme Chang Shao, the patriarchs of the Sanqing ancient sect, the Heaven Illusionary Ancestor sect, and the 9 heavens supremes were overjoyed too. The former was not a big deal, but the latter two had placed all their bets on Qin Nan. Now that Qin Nan had won the duel, they had made the right choice. Well done, Shao Nanzi. Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan wore charming smiles. Su Ruochen, Elder Long, and the 9 Heavens Supremes immediately felt relieved. They were extremely excited. They had long been bound together for good or ill. In comparison, Zhuang Nan and the 9 Heavens Supremes felt like they had been struck by lightning. Their faces immediately turned pale. They were relying on Xiang Hun to come up with their plan. Now that Xiang Hun was dead, their plan was in vain. More importantly, given the current situation, whether or not they could survive was a big problem. Xiang Hun's eyes were wide open. He still couldn't believe it, but the coldness and helplessness in his body made him realize that it wasn't an illusion. Qin Nan, Xiang Hun was about to say something, but his eyes lost focus before he could finish his sentence. Bang! His body shattered, turning into thousands of specks of light that scattered in all directions. Qin Nan frowned. He could sense an extremely mysterious and eternal fluctuation within each of the light spots. Qin Nan, Xiang Hun, is the 6th immortal. He has also mastered the half-step indestructible flesh of eternity. Even though it's only the half-step indestructible flesh of eternity, he won't die so easily. He will surely be reborn somewhere in the 9 Heavens immortal realm. Zhou Xuandao transmitted his voice, however. His strength will drop significantly after he is reborn. The half-step indestructible flesh of eternity will no longer exist. He will most likely revert to the greater success stage of the impenetrable sacred flesh. You're already impressive that you're able to come this far. Speaking of this, his eyes revealed a rare trace of complexity. As a matter of fact, he shared the same thought as Xiang Hun. He too assumed Qin Nan was just lucky to be treated as a chessboard by Zhou Di and Huang Fuju. However, that earth-shattering scene just now overturned this idea of his. What would happen in the future? Would Qin Nan become Zhou Di or Huang Fuju? Or was he going to turn into someone else? Did Zhou Di and Huang Fuju ever think of this when they were setting up the plan? Now that I think about it, you asked me to assist you in your reincarnation. I initially thought you were only trying to use the power of the undying cycle mountain to return to your peak. However, it seems like there's a reason behind your decision, Zhou Xuandao murmured. He turned into a white ray and entered Qin Nan's body. He was severely injured this time. He had to use the heavenly cycle seal to forcibly execute the rules of cultivation. He needed some time to recover. He's going to be reborn? Qin Nan's eyes flickered with sharpness. It was fine too. He had yet to vent his anger after killing Xiang Hun with his saber. Is that? No one noticed that when Zhuang Nan saw the countless specks of holy light, he immediately thought of something, and a new light shone in his eyes. Reverse the 9 forces, heaven-stealing divine concealment. Zhuang Nan quickly collected his thoughts and executed his last trump card. He turned into a ray of light with 9 colors and vanished into thin air. Did we let him go? Princess Miao Miao and Jiang Bailan harumphed coldly when they noticed it. She was planning to show off her and Xiao Lanlin's loot in front of Qin Nan. Brothers! Cultivator Qin Nan has already killed the 6th immortal. Who can possibly stop us? Let's go back. Elder Long yelled as he collected his thoughts. His face was filled with excitement. Kill! The other 9 Heavens Supremes let out a roar and regrouped into formations. We won't be able to stop him this time. Jingho, Wang Tianfang, and the rest of the saints and patriarchs were sighing in their hearts. Some were wearing troubled looks too. Without a doubt, after Qin Nan achieved the 9 Heavens Supreme Realm, with the support of the 3 Supreme Taoism factions and the indifferent attitude of the Sherdao tribe and the Mumen sect, he was surely going to grow into a new formidable existence. The difference between Qin Nan and them would be like the difference between the clouds and the mud. Even if they wanted to kill Qin Nan, they would need the rulers of Tao from the various factions to do it themselves. They had no chance of winning. Among the crowd, Jiang Ni clenched his sword tightly when he saw this. A terrifying sword Dao aura accumulated in his body and finally released. His sword was not strong enough. It was still no match for Qin Nan. It was not the right time for him to fight Qin Nan either. He shifted his gaze and saw Lu Qinin with a complicated expression not far away. He hesitated for a moment before fixing his eyes on an old man. The old man was not ranked on the supreme leaderboard, but Jiang and I knew he was stronger than Zheng He, who was ranked second on the supreme leaderboard. He was only slightly weaker than Li Yangfan. The extraordinary path of cultivation, Li Bei. He could serve as a whetstone for Jiang and I. Qin Nan, congratulations! Li Yangfan stood in the distance and transmitted her voice. Her voice was pleasant to the ears. I must thank Cultivator Li and Senior Celestial Tree for this. Qin Nan brought his fists together. Following this, a strong sense of weakness and helplessness arose in his heart, causing him to feel as if the world before him had turned dark. That saber strike just now was the strongest saber strike he had ever unleashed. It was extremely exhausting for him too. I should be the one thanking you. You've protected the dignity of our era. Li Yangfan said with a calm smile. According to the rules, the wisp of indestructible force and the art of the immortal demon are yours. It's inconvenient for you to refine them in public. I'll refine the godly palace for you. You can take what belongs to you and achieve the master realm. Chapter 2194. Princess Lanlan, I have to go and achieve the master realm. Remember to secure the heaven-reaching Dao fruit. Qin Nan transmitted his voice. Don't worry, Lanlan and I will surely secure the heaven-reaching Dao fruit. Princess Miao Miao waved her hand. She suddenly asked with squinted eyes, You seem to be quite close with the masked woman? Jiang Bailan nodded in agreement. I should say that we are quite close. Qin Nan coughed a few times before explaining himself. Princess Miao Miao harumphed and gave him a look that said, I'll let you go for now. I'll settle the score with you another day. Qin Nan twisted his lips. He looked at Supreme Chang Shao, Elder Long, and the others and said, Fellow cultivators, I'll go and achieve the master realm first. We'll meet again in the 9 heavens immortal realm. After he finished speaking, he flew towards the divine palace. Wherever he passed, the cultivators automatically made way for him. There was no more overwhelming killing intent. Li Yangfan waved her hand. The force encapsulating the pond and the altar dissipated. She left the place too. Qin Nan stared at the two objects for a few moments before waving his hand. Whoosh! A wisp of the indestructible force and the remaining art of the immortal demon turned into 2 brilliant rays and entered Qin Nan's body. Bang! Qin Nan's body underwent tremendous changes within the blink of an eye. First, it was his body. Every part of his body, every inch of his bones, every drop of blood, and so on began to undergo a great transformation. A surge of power rose from his heart, and it was still rising rapidly. Meanwhile, the ownerless heaven pattern deep inside Qin Nan's divine sense was awakened. It emitted a brilliant glow that lit up every inch of Qin Nan's body. An indescribable mystery began to be born. It was as if a huge door had been opened in Qin Nan's heart, allowing him to understand the secrets of the impenetrable sacred flesh. His current body was also transforming into the invulnerable sacred physique. Following this, countless demonic sounds echoed in Qin Nan's mind. Each word was like a clap of thunder. Together with the awakening of Huang Fu Ju's memories in his divine sense, the combination of the two was even greater than the change to his body. That being said, Qin Nan had yet to fully awaken Huang Fu Ju's memory. The latter half of the art of the immortal demon still required Qin Nan to comprehend, thus there was no significant change for the time being. When Qin Nan saw all this, he let out a long sigh of relief, calmed his mind, and sat down cross-legged. He didn't rely on himself to defeat Xiang Hun this time. If he didn't refine Zhoudi's essence blood and coincidentally awaken Huang Fuju's memories, he would have been defeated by Xiang Hun. Qin Nan used to hate Xiang Hun, but he had to admit that some of Xiang Hun's words were not without reason. He was like an ant compared to the two Supreme Highnesses, Zhou Di and Huang Fuju. His talents, cultivation, courage, and everything else were no match for them. The battle had allowed Qin Nan to learn and understand many things. He now had an idea in his mind. However, before he could do it, he had to achieve the Master Realm first. Qin Nan closed his eyes and sensed the mystical aura. The Nine Heavens' supreme force in his body began to evolve again. Most importantly, his Nine Heavens' supreme force was quite mystical. It was most likely influenced by the impenetrable sacred flesh and the art of the immortal demon. As time gradually passed, the aura emitted from Qin Nan's figure grew stronger. The sky above the palace had turned pitch black. Countless lightning arcs were rolling in it with a terrifying aura. Many Nine Heavens Supremes were startled by it. The aura alone was at least 10 times stronger than an ordinary Nine Heavens Supreme's aura when they achieved the Master Realm. However, they were not too shocked. It was not surprising that Qin Nan was able to achieve such a feat. Meanwhile, Qin Nan was emitting a sacred glow, a demonic glow, a Tao glow, and the glow of the Master Realm. Qin Nan had already learned a lot about the Master of Tao from the battles he had participated in. After the shocking battle, he was able to achieve the Master of Tao without any hindrance. The Master Realm was the starting point of a whole new level. The end of it was the Supreme Highness Realm. It was similar to ascending from the Heaven God Realm to the human immortal realm. Once a person reached the Nine Heavens Supreme Realm, they would reach the end of the immortal realm. The starting point of any realm was difficult to reach. At the same time, it also meant that everything would undergo a brand new change, which would have a huge impact on the future. This was equivalent to planting a new seed. The seed would eventually grow into a towering tree. Not only did it require a lot of care, it also depended on the seed's quality. Buzz. The aura Qin Nan was emitting grew stronger. The palace began to shake vigorously again. The great Tao between the heavens and earth began to ripple too. The battle continued outside the palace. The geniuses were fighting one another. The darkness in the sky continued to spread across a few 100,000 li. All kinds of rare phenomena took place too. Each of them was quite shocking. Bang! It was as if a great lightning had struck down all of a sudden. An indescribable gate slowly appeared at the end of the clouds with a terrifying aura. A shocking sight took place. 4 more supreme gates appeared one after another. There were 5 of them in total. Since ancient times, every Nine Heavens Supreme who achieved the Master Realm would only summon 1 supreme gate. It was rare to see someone summon 2 supreme gates. Many cultivators lifted their gaze. They soon saw a peerless saber glow rising from the palace. It split into 5 rays and slashed at the supreme gates. A series of deafening blasts took place. Countless lightning bolts gathered at the Taoist gates and turned into all kinds of calamities. However, neither the calamities nor the gates could do anything to the peerless saber glow. The saber glow shattered them into pieces in less than 100 breaths' time. A tremendous aura rose between the heavens and earth. The cultivators felt like they were facing a great mountain. The heavens and earth regained its clarity in the next moment. The aura, saber glow, calamities, rare phenomena, and everything else vanished. The Tao-seeking land would be forcibly teleported out after achieving the Master Realm. Chapter 2195. A formidable force encapsulated Qin Nan's figure and brought him into a gray, chaotic space. He was flying forward at a shocking pace. Qin Nan was unaware of it. He had fully immersed himself in the process after he broke through the Tao Gate. The Nine Heavens' supreme force in his body had become his main force. Cracks began to appear on the memory crystal in his sea of consciousness. On top of that, half of the transformation of his body was completed. The will of the impenetrable physique gradually appeared. The impenetrable sacred flesh was the strongest among the 10 great ancient physiques. Its ability was quite simple, it was able to ignore all Tao art. That being said, it did not necessarily mean the person was unbeatable after acquiring the impenetrable sacred flesh. It was similar to the indestructible flesh of eternity. Was it really indestructible? It was impossible. Even Zhou Di, who was a supreme highness, had to be reincarnated after he died in the end. However, the words impenetrable and indestructible were used to describe how terrifying and magical the impenetrable sacred flesh of eternity were. In addition to it, the impenetrable sacred flesh was similar to the cultivation levels. It was split into the early stage, the greater success stage, and the peak stage. Generally speaking, if one wanted to possess one of the 10 great ancient physiques, it had to be bestowed by the heavens and one was born with it. However, the wisp of indestructible force that Zhou Di left for Qin Nan was extraordinary. It was able to help Qin Nan refine the impenetrable sacred flesh of eternity. Together with the ownerless heaven pattern, it allowed Qin Nan to break the rule of bestowing by the heavens and refine the impenetrable sacred flesh of eternity on its own. Time gradually passed. Qin Nan suddenly sensed something in his heart. He immediately transmitted his voice, "Pattern spirit, lend me a hand." The ownerless heaven pattern immediately unleashed a magnificent force surging into Qin Nan's body. A series of explosions took place. Qin Nan's body began to turn crystalline, as if it was carved out of an immortal jade. In the end, a faint glow burst out of Qin Nan's body and lit up the surroundings. The impenetrable saint physique had been formed. However, at that instant, the art of the immortal demon began to activate on its own, as if it had encountered a formidable foe, causing a shocking demonic intent to rise behind Qin Nan. In addition to that, Qin Nan's 103 acupuncture points began to vibrate vigorously, as if an invisible world was being formed above his head, resulting in a shocking ripple. This was the power of the upper demon law and the upper demon law. At this moment, the main force within Qin Nan's body began to violently seethe. These two completely different forces began to collide and repel each other. Although this repulsion wasn't particularly strong, Qin Nan knew very well that as he cultivated the impenetrable sacred body and the immortal true demon art to a deeper level, this repulsion would become even stronger. In the end, his body would become the battlefield. How could an invincible body and an invincible art coexist? Qin Nan didn't stop him. He was like a bystander, carefully observing. However, his gaze became sharper and sharper. Do it. Some time later, Qin Nan executed the 12 arts of Tao seeking. The Tao pattern in his body immediately unleashed 12 shocking intents that encapsulated the undefeatable flesh and the undefeatable arts of Tao seeking. Bang bang bang! The force exerted by the invincible flesh and the invincible art grew stronger, as if it was going to crush the Tao pattern into pieces. Qin Nan felt a great pressure in his heart. It felt like he had offended the heavenly Tao. Qin Nan knew he was playing with fire by doing so. It was very likely that his Tao pattern would shatter, turning his undefeatable flesh and undefeatable art into his enemy, inflicting serious damage to his main force. However, the Tao pattern was his will. Qin Nan wasn't planning to use the Tao pattern to suppress the impenetrable flesh and art. He wasn't that stupid and full of himself. However, Qin Nan was planning to merge the three. The decision was crazier than merging the remaining intents of Zhou Di and Huang Fuju. The remaining intents of the two intents were only temporary. The impenetrable sacred flesh and the art of the immortal demon would continue to grow. Qin Nan would continue to grow too. He had no idea what the outcome would be after merging the three intents. Besides, even if Qin Nan managed to do it, how was he going to improve and cultivate in the future? There were many things that Qin Nan was clueless about, but it was exactly what he wanted. The battle against Xiang Hun had taught him that he could no longer be confused about who he was and guess if he would become Zhou Di or Huang Fuju in the future. Since Zhou Di and Huang Fuju had left their memories, martial arts, flesh, and artifacts, he might as well accept everything and embark on a new path. Since the predecessors had planted a towering tree, then the later generations would have to stand on top of this towering tree and look at the wider scenery that the predecessors had never seen before. He was not afraid at all. Meanwhile, in a mysterious residence in the land of the duo in the Tao-seeking land, the young man who referred to himself as Di was looking at a pond. The scenery in the pond was changing rapidly. It was Tang Qinshan, Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, Gong Yang, Qin Tian, and the others, but the former was the most common. The heavenly expansion formation, I still can't see through it after so many days, the young man exclaimed. He waved his hand to calm the pond. He was too lazy to look at it anymore. On second thought, he was relieved that Qin Nan did not ask him who he was going to kill. Otherwise, he would not have been able to answer the question. Huh! The young man raised his brows as he sensed something. TSK, Xiang Hun, why do I feel like you're not a traitor, but a whetstone for your master instead of a traitor? The battle has awakened a terrifying thought, the young man murmured. The young man muttered to himself. Unknowingly, his mood had become somewhat gloomy. He had been trying to figure it out over the years, yet he still failed to see through it. His eyes were still unable to see through fate. However, he had an extremely bad feeling in his heart. The bad feeling would spread across the 9 heavens in a year and 3 months. The young man shook his head and calmed his thoughts. He walked into the room and soon saw a copper plate emitting wisps of light, causing his eyes to glitter. Chapter 2196. Time trickled by. 6 days later. Qin Nan's figure was still inside the gray chaotic space. During this period, Qin Nan's will had been fighting against the impenetrable sacred flesh and the art of the immortal demon. He was on the verge of being suppressed and defeated more than 100 times, yet he clenched his teeth and managed to hold on. The aura in his body had calmed down. The impenetrable sacred flesh and the art of the immortal demon no longer resisted him. They were merging with the Tao pattern too. However, there was still some time before they were fully merged. Bang! At that instant, a shocking explosion took place, awakening Qin Nan, who was immersed in his thoughts. Qin Nan soon noticed that the memory crystal in his divine sense had shattered into pieces. An ancient aura surged in all directions. 4 bell chimes took place. Countless runes spread into the surroundings with Qin Nan at the center, forming a pattern of 8 dragons. Is Huang Fuju's memory about to be awakened? Qin Nan murmured. Whoosh! A formidable force appeared out of nowhere and landed on him. It brought his mind, will, and everything else into a white space. Qin Nan glanced upward. He saw a blue vortex over 100 zhang long at the end of the space. An image was floating inside it. The scene was a vast and boundless golden land. Numerous mountains rose from the ground and soared into the clouds. At the peak of the tallest mountain, there was a pitch-black skeleton with a jade-like appearance sitting with its legs crossed. Qin Nan's heart shuddered. He sensed a magnificent, indescribable imperiousness, as if the black skeleton was superior to all living things, the Tao of the heavens and earth, and the rules of cultivation. At the same time, an incomparably familiar feeling of longing rose in his heart. It was as if this black skeleton was himself, and he had to take it away. Is this Huang Fuju's flesh that Emosia mentioned? Qin Nan muttered to himself. Back then, Emosia had told him that he would only know where Huang Fuju's Dharma body was after he attained mastery and awakened the incomplete memories of his past life. Emosia had also hinted to him that he, Demon Lord Wutian, and Huang Fuju's former subordinates would only listen to his orders after he had mastered the art of the immortal demon and refined his Dharmakaya. Shwa. After an unknown amount of time, this scene dissipated. Qin Nan's mind and will returned to his body. Qin Nan reacted and couldn't help but frown. Why wasn't there any left? The last time he had awakened Zhoudi's remnant memories, not only had he seen Zhoudi's image, but he had also entered a mysterious state. He had become Zhoudi and experienced many things. However, the current situation could not be considered as an awakening of memory at all. It could only be considered as knowing the location of the Dharmakaya. Could it be that I need to refine the Dharmakaya in order to obtain some memories? Qin Nan thought. Fine, let's not worry about this for now. Qin Nan shook his head and immersed himself in his cultivation. Another 5 days later, Qin Nan finally came out from the gray chaotic space. For some reason, he did not end up somewhere in the first immortal realm. Instead, he ended up in a small immortal realm that Qin Nan was unfamiliar with. Zhou Xuandao was still recovering, thus Qin Nan did not want to disturb him. He did not choose to return to the undying Cycle Mountain. With a flicker, he arrived at an ancient mountain range and entered an ancient cave. He closed his eyes after transmitting his thoughts to Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, Empress Feiyue, Master Rodeo, Supreme Chang Shao, Emosia, and the others. However, little did Qin Nan know, the land within a few tens of thousand li had changed because of his arrival. The immortal intent lingering in the rift had multiplied and continued to grow. 10 days later, a few dozen people came out from the Tao-seeking land. The 10 heaven-reaching Tao fruits were distributed to Princess Miao Miao, Jiang Bailan, Jiang Anai, Supreme Chang Shao, Zheng Ho, Su Ruochen, Elder Long, Holy Monk Wang Jin, Wang Tianfeng, and Xiang Qi. They had successfully refined the heaven-reaching Tao fruits and achieved the Master Realm. On top of it, Li Yangfan, Li Bei, some patriarchs, saints, and rogue cultivators had achieved the Master Realm on their own. What happened in the Tao-seeking land soon spread across the place and startled many factions. The old cultivators of various factions gasped when they learned that Qin Nan had killed Xiang Hun and claimed the loot left behind by Zhou Di and Huang Fuju. Some were overjoyed, but most of them were intimidated and stern. On top of that, the fact that Li Yangfan was the successor of the Celestial Tree stirred quite a stir too. The other 6 Heaven Highness clans immediately went to the Li clan to discuss something. 5 days later, in the nameless mountain range, a little girl with fair skin and beautiful jet-black hair flew out from the forest in the distance. She was wearing a golden silk dress. When she saw the cave in front of her, her little face couldn't help but light up with joy. Such a strong immortal intent, and an ancient demonic intent too. If I cultivate here for 10 days, I can surely recover from my injuries. I might even be able to master the upper half of the 9 transformations of the Fox Monarch and achieve the Heaven Immortal Realm, the little girl murmured. She was not stupid. The area within 10,000 li was a few times stronger than the blessed immortal lands, yet the beasts in the mountain range did not dare to set foot in it. It was obvious that something terrifying was lurking around. The little girl clenched her teeth after a slight hesitation. She had no choice. If it wasn't for the incomplete map, she would not have been able to reach the inner part of the mountain range so easily. If she did not recover from her injuries and improve her cultivation, she would definitely be caught by those people after a while. In the end, only death would await her. The little girl made up her mind and went into the cave. Her green eyes soon saw Qin Nan. Although Qin Nan's body did not emit any aura, as if he was a statue, the little girl immediately guessed that this young man was the cause of the rare phenomenon after traveling around for so many years. The little girl's face turned slightly pale. She immediately brought her fists together and said in a sobbing tone, "Senior, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you. Please don't blame me." A few moments later, the little girl was startled when she saw that Qin Nan remained still without any reaction. Senior, did he not blame her? She thought, but she was not sure. She remained still and did not dare to speak. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.